Good evening, everyone. It is 5:15 this Monday, February 14th. This Carroll City Council session is now in order. Would you please rise and join me in Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, before us we have tonight's agenda. All council members are attend, and you have the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review that? Are there any questions or issues with tonight's consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, I would open it up. Item number 4 on the agenda is the oral requests and communication. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Yeah, can you tell my nerves are up? I'm sorry. Yeah, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Dirks,
Yes.
Bordenaro,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Streck, Base.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Very good. Okay, I'll pause and breathe once again. Number 4 are the oral requests and communications from the audience. Got a little bit ahead of myself. There's a full audience tonight. Most of you are here to talk about the rec center, which is fine. Glad to have you. But this would be on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Does anybody have an oral request or a comment for the council? Hearing none, we will move ahead to number 5 on tonight's agenda, World Cancer Day in Carroll. A proclamation that was made by myself and along with Ed Smith, the CEO of St. Anthony's. A copy of that is in your packet. February 4th was the proclamation day for World Cancer Day in Carroll. The timing of this could have been a little bit better, which I've had to visit a little bit with Mike as far as the protocol of this, because it's obviously after the 4th. But we've had to talk to the hospital and others to say, try and get that to us just a little bit sooner. I was glad to oblige, certainly a good cause and something near and dear to my heart as well. So that's mostly for your information. Tonight, number 6, under ordinances, we have an ordinance to amend the voting precincts. And Mike, you'll take this, but essentially what we're doing is just making an adjustment to action that was taken late last year.
And I'll pass this to Laura.
Okay, Laura.
Yes, thank you, Mark. So after we had submitted the information to the Secretary of State's office for our precincts and updating of the wards and boundaries and things for the voting, they came back and said that there was a section up in the northeast part of Carroll that was recently annexed. That is a residential area, and that actually will split, a voting area in the county. And so they're requesting that we work with the county to include that whole area as one voting precinct, or take that area, which would include the area that was annexed plus some of the rural area around it, and make it a part of the voting precinct number 1, because we can't split a census block or a voting precinct since we had annexed that area. So later, when that area potentially will get developed into residential property or residential area, those people would automatically vote in Ward 1, but that splits a census block and a voting precinct. The county has already approved this at their board meeting last Monday, and so the county's asking that the city work with them to do that as well, or to include that into the voting precinct number 1. Right now, there's like 5 rural residents in that area that would be affected by this. They would be changing their voting area from Litterdale to the city of Carroll.
If and when that fills in someday, and then redistricting would pick that up and move the other 3 wards. And
The voting precinct for those individuals will be affected right away that are already currently existing.
okay, by those 5 residents or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Laura?
Well, then along with that, I guess I'll talk about the next item with this. Then we also need to amend our ordinance so that we reflect that we would have that unincorporated area as part of voting precinct number 1. If the agreement is approved by council.
Very good. Any other questions for Laura then? So we're in order for a motion to approve the ordinance amending the code of ordinances of the city of Carroll by amending provisions pertaining to ward boundaries and voting precincts.
Actually, we'll need to approve the resolution approving the agreement first. And then we can do the
That's
ordinance after that.
number 1, you got to read.
Okay. Okay, so the resolution, okay, it just wasn't on this. So, okay, very good. So we need a motion to approve the resolution approving the county's request to allow an area in an unincorporated area of Carroll County north of East 18th Street between Grant Road and Noble Avenue to be part of voting precinct 1.
So moved.
Second.
Very well. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Shrek?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
And now the ordinance.
Don't you have to approve the first reading? You have to approve the first reading?
First reading.
Yeah.
And then if you would choose to, you could waive the second and third, or if you wanted to just do the first
Just
one
the
tonight.
first.
Okay, so a first reading there.
Is that a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the first reading in voting district 1. Second.
We have a motion first and second to move on to the second reading. Is that right then, Laverne? Okay,
Yeah, you'll approve the first reading
very
tonight.
good.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Seaman?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. So now the resolutions that are on the agenda under item number 7. The first one is a vacation of 3 plats of survey owned by the Leona M. Dries Farms LLC in the northeast 1/4 of section 12, township 84 north, range 35, west 5th PM, Carroll County. It's up north of town, up by the school, I believe.
Correct. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is a request we received from Representative Gregory Seaman, representing Larry Dries and member manager of.
Can we open a public hearing?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's fine. Yeah, so we go ahead. It is 5:23, and we'll open up the public hearing for this vacation of property. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Mayor and Council, this is a request from Gregory Seaman, representing Larry Dries, the Leona Dries Farms LLC's property owner, to vacate 3 plats of survey for the property they own. The legal descriptions of the plats were included in the packet for your information. The intention of this vacation is the family would like to move some of the property lines around ultimately. So by vacating the plats that are in place today, they can then move forward with a new plat of survey without going through the subdivision process that the city has. So once this vacation is approved, the property owners will have a survey completed, and then the city can sign off that through the administrative process we would other plats of survey. Included in the packet was the original plats of surveys and the petition of vacation of the surveys and a copy of Iowa code pertaining to a vacation of plat of survey. The city did publish notice as required in the Carroll Times-Herald on January 25th and again on February 8th. And as of the date of this memo, the city's received no comments related to this request. The Planning and Zoning Commission did review this request at their January 12th meeting. The commission did vote to recommend that the city council approve the proposed vacation plat. So staff recommendation is at this time is to approve the vacation of the plat so requested as requested. Be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening.
Any questions for Mike about this? This is within the 2-mile limit, so it falls under our jurisdiction. If there's no further questions, I would seek a motion to approve the resolution to vacate the property.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, Mark, can we close the public hearing first? Or if you want
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
ask if anybody's here to talk about that or anybody online.
Yeah, always pretty good about opening it. I forget to close it. Yeah, are there any questions from anybody that's online or anybody in the public about this issue? Hearing none, it is 5:26. We will close the public hearing on the vacation of the Dries property. Now we're in, yeah, thank you too, Laura. Now we're in order for a motion to approve the resolution vacating the property.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. Been a motion and a second for a resolution to vacate the property, the Dries property. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bornero,
Yes.
Shrek. Yes. Seaman,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Next item is 12th Street Reconstruction and the STBG grant funding application.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, too.
An application for federal funding under the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program has been prepared. The application is for the reconstruction of 12th Street from West Street to Grant Road. That reconstruction is anticipated to include all the items are similar to what the Adams Street project this year is. Pavement removal, replacement, rehabilitation of the utilities, sidewalk, whatever decisions are made on Adams Street, this would be envisioned to parallel that. This segment of 12th Street was recommended based on pavement condition and then comparison to other federal aid eligible routes within the city. These federal block grants can only be used on certain street segments that have been identified as federal aid routes within the city. Applications were due January 31st. An application has been submitted unsigned. It can be withdrawn if that's your desire. I have attached a copy of that application to the information in your packet. The estimated cost of the project total is about $3.5 million. The grant application is for $800,000. So that leaves a total balance of about $2.7 million that would be locally funded. And this is for federal fiscal year 2026. The current CIP does include a reconstruction project in 2026. It does require a resolution that commits the local funding and assures project maintenance. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your consideration of approval of committing the funds for the construction and assuring the operation and maintenance of the 12th Street reconstruction project.
Very good. Any other questions for Randy? Okay, so we are in order for a motion to approve a resolution committing funds for construction, assuring operation and maintenance of the 12th Street reconstruction project.
So moved.
Do we need to put a dollar figure in that? Not on this one? Okay.
I wonder.
All right.
What, and it was 2.6 was local?
Well, you're actually looking at 800,000.
Okay,
Yeah,
It's not an expenditure we have.
Okay.
yeah, the grant application is for 800,000. Total project was 3.5
okay.
million.
8, yeah, okay.
I'll second that.
Yeah, there a motion and a second to approve the resolution as stated. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Bauer,
Yes.
Shrek.
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Base,
Yes.
Bornero.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Okay. Okay, item C. Item C is what most of us are here for tonight. and that is the Carroll Recreation Center Building Improvement Project. What I foresee is a healthy and vibrant discussion, hearing points from all sides of this. I would certainly welcome comments from those in attendance, those that are online. You just got to raise your hand as they do on there. All of the sitting council members have had multiple conversations about this in public settings. It's pretty well known by now, been well covered in the media. The position we find ourselves in, those that are in favor and those who are in favor of a smaller project. But at this point, I would certainly open it up out of respect for the council members. First, that if you have a point that maybe we haven't heard yet or some new development on it, I think we'd all like to hear it, and anybody can open it up at will.
Would you like staff and Chad go through the staff report first, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We continue communication, open discussion on the Carroll Rec Building Improvement Project. Tonight, we will provide you with additional possible funding sources as well as 4 project options. Additional funding sources include additional lost bonding up to an additional $1.99 million could be issued. Issuing $1.338 million in lost bonding to cover shortfall would increase the annual lost debt payment from $379,000 to $454,000 annually. The use or the availability of ARPA funds up to $1.47 million is available. Delay or remove fiscal year 2024 outdoor aquatic slide and lost in the amount of $425,000, and removing removing trail funding in fiscal year 23 and 24 in the amount of $500,000 is also available. Different options we've discussed include value engineering, which in that case we would have to enter in contract and accept the bid. If this route is picked, there is no overall guarantee to a certain overall number or percent that we can cut from the project. A lot of possibility there. Option number 1 for our project options is proceed with full project, $8.965 million, short 1.338 million before any valued engineering. Option number 2, proceed forward without the west side fitness rooms. That total project would be $8.72 million, short $1,093,000 before value engineering. Option 3, scale back and rebid only HVAC and locker room components. Will increase amount of engineering and have increase in overall inflation on materials. And then option number 4 is don't proceed with renovation at the Carroll Rec Center at this time. Our recommendation is for the council to review, consider, and approve one of the resolutions on the Carroll Recreation Center Building Improvement Project 2021.
Chad, for people listening or at home, would you read through option A, B, and C, what those mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So option A is approved base bid only. So that's without the west side fitness room renovations. Option B is approved base bid and add alternate number 1. So that is the full scale project we've been looking at. And then option C is reject all bids. From there, we can decide another route. But at this point, those are your 3 options.
I got a question on the aquatic slide. Are you okay with delaying that 1 year?
Yes.
Okay, so that's $425,000, correct?
Yep.
Okay, what about the $500,000 for the loss? What do you have that earmarked for?
So that was originally earmarked for phase 3 of the project. Once we approached phase 3 of the trail project, it kind of hit a dead end. So we are looking at going back to the drawing boards for phase 3 and updating for 4, 5, and 6. So it'd be more of an engineering phase where we would only need 25 to 40,000.
So that earmark right now for $500,000, it's basically open.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I got some comments. I want somebody to go first.
Absolutely, go ahead.
If this came in at budget or below, because this is what was voted on, we've all agreed, Carolyn presented that last meeting, this would go through. There's, that's what people voted on. So now we're looking at, what we're really discussing now is a 1.338 million overrun. So I've got some things that I want to bring up that we can get to that 7.6 that was voted on. First of all, like Chad just said, we can delay the aquatic slide, okay? Then we can delay the 2 years, which he doesn't have anything earmarked for, $500,000 on the trails. So now you're at balance of, that's 900,000. So you're at 413,000 you got left out of that 1.338. Then we got $1.4 million in stimulus money. I'm proposing to take the West Edition at $245,000 and put that in there. So now from 1.338 million, we are down to $168,000 left to do. And if, we've all got our local option sales tax and hotel motel tax sheets. And the balances for that, we have that money to pay for that $168,000 if we need to. If not, we just increase our yearly payment close to $10,000. So that gets us to the 7.6 that they voted on. By just delaying that, delaying the aquatic side, delaying the trails, putting the West Edition on stimulus, and then if you want, you can take the $168,000 out of local option sales tax and motel tax to make that difference up. So then you're at 7.6, what the public voted on. That's my stand on this. There's 6 of us. It's time for all of us to speak up.
I'd like to make a few comments. Excuse me. I put my thoughts together and thought I would read them. Tell me if, when I'm done, if you have any questions. I firmly believe the full rec center project is a win-win for Carroll. We need to work together to create a strategy to complete the full project, because once elected, we represent all of the people, not just those few who voted for us. A total of 52.7% of 1,733 voters approved up to 7.6 million in lost funds to go toward a rec center project. With the current 3-3 split on the council, I found Laverne has given us a pathway to working together on this to accomplish both sides' goals, updating and expanding the rec center, while at the same time lowering taxes for fiscal year 23. The full project will never cost less. Some argue this project is a want and not a need. Wrong. CADC's Executive Director, Kimberly Tiefenthaler, told us when prospective hires at Pella, the hospital, and elsewhere check out Carroll, the rec center is a draw. Growing Carroll's workforce increases Carroll's tax base. It generates revenue for businesses, and those businesses create loss funds. So again, with an ongoing cycle, we're holding down taxes. These funds provide property tax relief and revenue for city projects. For these reasons, this project is a need, a win-win for employers, residents, and the city. Debbie Durham, Iowa's Executive Director for Iowa Economic Development Authority, spoke at a CEDC event in Carroll last Tuesday. She urged Carroll to move forward with a full rec center project and advised, you need to make the investment. and do it right. This is exactly what draws people in, and the research tells us what they are looking for. You have to be making investments in quality of life because it does make a difference attracting particularly young people. We are able to do it right. Carroll is in a strong financial position and poised to complete the full rec center project without raising taxes. And I cannot stress that enough. It is one of Carroll's amenities which enhance quality of life and is vital to Carroll's economic development, competitiveness, and overall vibrancy. It is a win-win for Carroll. Thank you.
Any other comments from the council? Anything new?
I'm for the full plan as well. So I've been on that vote the whole time. So nothing new from me.
Not only did Ed Durham have that comment, today at the DMAC open house, you were there, Mark, and they mentioned, one of the success of Carroll and DMAC is they were not shy. The city leaders in the past have not been shy of moving forward and spending the money, and otherwise they wouldn't be where they're at, is what they said. You were there. You heard it.
Yeah, I heard it with my own ears. And, and again, I was struck again about, the private-public partnership that took place there as well. Something that, we're just not enjoying the fruits of, that opportunity here yet.
Well, yeah,
either, so.
we're a tax-based entity, and to ask the public to donate to that, to me, sometimes it's, you're taking away from the people that really need the donations. Kemper, the Cancer Center, those are the people that I would hate to take donations from them on a tax-based entity. Like us.
If that, I would agree. If we didn't have different pots of,
Right.
you certainly have more than one charity.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we all do. Hearing none else from the council?
I'll say something. Mark, I was in there this afternoon. It's a beautiful facility. It really is. I don't think one of us could go in there and walk in and say, wow, I don't want to be any part of this because it's so dilapidated and bad. I mean, it still shined like it was back in 1983 when I first went over there. Bathrooms? Well, the bathrooms haven't changed, no. But looking through the fitness center, 2 levels, beautiful. Staring at the basketball courts where it wasn't very full. I'll just be honest with you. Maybe it was timing. Everybody says it was the time of day, which is fine. It's still a beautiful facility. It's not like we don't have one. But your justification of spending the money from, what was it you called it? The stimulus? So where was that money earmarked for? Where's it supposed to go?
It
Just
could go-
anywhere? And
It
how
can go
did
to
it come
that.
about?
Yeah, there's a lot of things it can go to.
So,
But, and the other thing is, I only wanted to take 245,000 of that 1.4 million, as Mike has mentioned, that we got to be careful of spending all of it at one time. So I suggested only 245,000. I could have added the 168,000 to that if I wanted to. Or you could have done, there's 1.4 in there and we're 1.3 short. You could have done the whole thing, but that's not our city manager's recommendation.
Well, and when you look at the ballot language for loss too, Tom, it states that the loss money should be directed toward city facilities and for the enhancement of quality of life and also economic competitiveness. And so that is how we framed the ballot language, and so that we could do these updates, which can be sizable, but they also are funds that we don't have to use, tax money. We can use lost money, and also that lost money, 25% of it, that was the ballot language, goes to property tax relief. So it's really, again, to use win-win, it's a win-win for the people in Carroll. And remember, the lost funds, people come to Carroll from all over, and they're spending money in Carroll. You know that, you're a businessman.
Yep.
And so it's not only our money, local Carroll money, but it's money from contiguous counties.
Sure.
And so they're contributing. They also are members. So it's, again, we have a path to do something fantastic for Carroll. And I think if we look at the big picture and think long-term, in another 45 years, we don't want a 90-year-old building that it may be updated a bit inside, but, needs also change too. And kids are looking for different activities. There are a full range of people change and they want different things to do. So again, as Kimberly said to us last week, we need something so that we stand out. And it's one of our few assets that we can improve on. It's here. It's not like, we're asking to build a new rec center. We want to create new space, and we want to provide another amenity, which people have been providing for decades in towns smaller than us, a racetrack.
Correct.
They have a racetrack at the state gym on Iowa State campus, and that was built in 1911. I think we're a little behind the curve.
You made a good comment last week about an outdoor-indoor facility that's being bought in Sioux Center, which would be the next up and coming thing.
Yeah, and they're going to hold events that they anticipate they'll have like 200,000 person draw a year. And Sioux Center is like 8,000 people.
If you wanted that in the future, where would you put it?
Well, we're not talking about, I'd
I'm just
love to
asking
do
about
something.
options.
No, I'd love to do something like that in the future. But right now we're talking about this, and this is our last big project we have on our plate. This is a one-time deal. And, other than doing streets and things, we're going to continue trails. We're delaying them. We're in a good position to do something before it gets so old and dilapidated. And if we keep it the way it is now with just some fix-ups, it's going to be a tear down in another 45 years. And then what will it cost to do new? And to, so we don't know, but I appreciate what you said. Yeah.
You had talked about the ballot language. I've got a copy of it right here. Let me read it. If the local option sales tax passes, 25% of it is for property tax relief, which we do. And then I'm going to read this here, 75% for necessary capital improvement projects as defined by the council and which enhance necessary city facilities, thereby enhancing the quality of life for the citizens and the economic competitiveness for the city of Carroll and for other lawful purposes of the city of Carroll as determined by the city council. That's what they voted on. It's on the ballot. Okay, so we're clear with all that.
Here, I'm going to hand out something else also, just to clarify misinformation that continues to happen. And this was at the radio website regarding the results of the special election on September 8th, 2020. This is September 8th at 8:18 p.m. And I've highlighted the information. The voters knew exactly what they were voting for when they approved the lost and the sunset. And here's what the radio station reported. Carroll Rec Center, 13.38 million renovation and addition. 2 questions. authorize continuation of local option sales tax until repeal for an estimated 7.6 to be used for the project. This was a referendum on the rec center project to be used for the project. Passed at 52.7%, 914 yes, 819 no. That was a 50% plus one threshold. They did not approve the 5.9 for the general obligation money, which would require taxpayer dollars. And I know you're getting tired of hearing me, but you know what? I'm getting tired of misinformation. And I prepared another statement, and I'm going to walk everybody through what exactly we did legally based on legal counsel and bond counsel. Due to the continuing misinformation being spread about the September 8th, 2020, 13,380,000 Carroll Rec Center improvement referendum, I would like to address the public and give them facts to avoid further confusion. What misinformation is being spread? The public is being told that the entire 13,380,000 Carroll Rec Center project was rejected by voters and that the previous city council circumvented the voters' will by moving forward with a scaled back project. That simply is not true. What are the facts regarding the referendum? Voters were asked to consider two questions. The first question was to authorize imposition of a local sales and services tax lost in the city of Carroll without repeal effective January 1st, 2024 until repealed. To prepare for the referendum, the council at their June 8th, 2020 meeting approved the following resolution. This was a part of what's legally required to work our way toward a referendum. And I quote, revenues from the lost tax are to be allocated as follows: 25% for property tax relief, 75% for necessary capital improvement projects as defined by the council, and which enhance necessary city facilities, thereby enhancing the quality of life for the citizens and economic competitiveness. Just what Laverne read to you. It authorized the city council to issue lost bonds for a rec center project. At the same meeting, a second resolution was approved to schedule a public hearing on June 22nd, 2020, to quote, notice of meeting of the City Council of the City of Carroll, State of Iowa, on the matter of the proposed issuance of not to exceed 7,610,000 general obligation local option sales tax bonds of the city and a hearing of the issuance thereof. To provide, and listen to this, to provide funds to pay the costs of construction, reconstruction, improvement, enlargement, extension, and equipping of a rec center. You move from general to more specific as you go through the legal process. On September 8th, 2020, voters approved the lost ballot question, again, the 52.7% yes vote. This means the city may use up to 7,610,000 of lost bonds to fund a rec center project. The second ballot question asked, and I quote, shall the city of Carroll enter a loan agreement and issue general obligation capital loan notes in an amount not to exceed 5.9 million for the purpose of the construction, reconstruction, improvement, enlargement, extension, and equipping of a rec center? The second question was not approved. Voters rejected the additional 5.9. They did not reject the 7.6 for a rec center. As a result, of the vote, the council scaled back the project. Those are the facts. Misinformation is telling you something different, but that's exactly, and you can go to the June 8th council packet if anybody wants to look it over. But the misinformation is getting old, and I thought I'd bore you with a little bit of information from our work toward a referendum. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Carolyn.
I appreciate you bringing all that up.
Misty, go ahead.
No, I just was saying thank you. I appreciate you bringing all of that
Sure.
forward again, just so everybody can hear that.
And those are the facts. I mean, 2.5 years have passed since then, and so it's a little cloudy for a lot of people, but, you know,
Well, and I can see how that happened because
Yeah,
the
it's
one failed, so
complex.
they assumed the whole thing failed.
well,
I
and,
get that.
and because it wasn't part of the ballot language. The 7.6 was not, it didn't.
Well, it didn't say ballot
No,
language. Yeah, you're
well,
right there.
again, it says authorization to continue as a local option sales tax. There's no mention of the rec center in question 1.
Well,
And I think that's where the confusion comes in.
Oh,
And
that's
from many
right,
people
yeah.
that I've
So-
talked to, they believe that that
right.
was to vote for projects within the city, not specific.
And so when the second one mentioned the rec center and it
The-
failed,
Yeah. Well,
that's why people thought that the rec center project failed.
well, let me be clear,
Right
the
or wrong,
ballot, the
that's-
ballot language did say this. Revenues from the lost taxes are to be allocated as followed: 25% property tax relief, 75% for necessary capital improvement projects as defined by the council and which enhance necessary city facilities, thereby enhancing the quality of life and the economic competitiveness of the city. Then when we held our meeting on June 22nd, the public hearing, then by then we knew what we were going to use part of the 75% for. And so at that public hearing on June 22nd of 2020, we gave a very specific description on what we would do. It would be for a rec center. But the thing is that we crafted the ballot language and so that it was broad enough. If you start narrowing things down, we're going to do a rec center and we're going to do, a trail here, a trail. You narrow yourself down and say, we're only going to use it for this, this, and this. Then you're trapped and it doesn't allow flexibility. Like if we have, something, a bold new idea or investor or somebody, you move from the general to the specific so you don't lock
Tie yourself down.
tie yourself,
Right.
right. And we, you want your flexibility to respond to needs.
And this is not just a vote on the rec center. What we voted on is forever.
Stuff we
So if
already
you
had.
specify just the rec center, now you're in trouble.
Yeah,
You get it. Okay.
I absolutely, I understand.
Alrighty.
The public, on the other hand,
Right.
I think
And-
that's why the public feels that those that voted no were duped into
Yeah,
voting
I'm
for the
I'm not trying to
7.6
speak
million.
for them. I'm just,
Yeah.
I bet.
That is
you know,
why
you're
the
tired of hearing it. I'm tired of
misinformation.
hearing
Yeah.
the
right.
other thing. I mean,
Right.
So they felt like they were voting for something to use citywide, not specific to the rec
Right.
center. That's why they voted no for the rec center. And then,
and the part that failed was the rec center part. So
Right. so then they feel like, oh, well, they're going to do what they want anyway.
No, the
And-
rec
No, it was
center,
scaled down.
it was, they,
I understand that it
They
was scaled
said-
down.
We aren't doing just what we want. We're
Right.
doing what we know we need.
right,
Understood.
Right.
But what I'm saying is people voted no. They believed that what they were voting for was off the table and the money was to be used for other projects within the city.
And I get that. It's really too sad that the misleading information came out and has continued to come and come and come 2 years down the road. I mean, we should have nipped it in the butt,
Well,
whomever.
I think
and
that it
there
all
should have
goes
been.
back too to the projects that were, started years and years ago that weren't finished, such as one thing that keeps coming up in all the emails that I get. We voted for this swimming pool and we're still waiting on the lazy river that was in the project.
I wasn't part of that. So
I know. I'm just saying, those are
I don't know
our,
what those plans were, but we have a beautiful outdoor aquatic center.
Yeah.
The indoor is what we need help with. And in fact, our pool is going to need it at some point too inside if we're going to keep going. So, I
That-
mean,
That
That's a
wasn't
whole
used
nother
for an local option
conversation.
sales tax, was it? That was property tax for the aquatic center.
I can't say for certain off the top of my head, no local option sales tax money was used, but a lot of it was debt issuance. but
Mhm.
obviously-
So that's a big difference
Yeah.
in this. We're using local option sales
Completely
tax instead of debt.
Right.
We're only using 10% debt.
And I think because we are, it's just a smart move to use the lost and then delay and not take away projects that people want, to delay them instead of removing them. So, and to be able to do it while lowering taxes, to me, is a phenomenal opportunity.
absolutely.
Very well. Any other comments from the council before I open it up to the public?
did we get that fixed?
What's that?
The volume? I don't know. Okay.
I don't know who, they can't hear anybody?
Yeah, people online or watching cannot
I've
hear
had people
us.
texting me saying they can't hear it.
Darn it.
My wife just rejoined and got volume.
And she got volume, so she logged off and rejoined.
So, yes, we had an issue with Zoom. I do know Western Iowa Networks is not getting audio. MediaCom is getting audio. And so we're sending audio out. Why Western Iowa Networks doesn't, I can't answer that question.
And then just log off and try to log back on maybe.
It
We're on
doesn't
Iowa
work that way.
Network.
Doesn't matter.
So Western Iowa Networks is not getting audio.
My wife logged off and rejoined on Western Iowa Network.
Okay, well, then maybe they fixed it. So
But if we asked them to do that, they couldn't even hear us.
I have. it
Instruct them to do that then, right?
You
Oh,
gotta
yeah, our
rotate
mic's on.
people.
Okay. Okay. Anything else from the council? Hearing none, we're going to open it up to members of the public. Vicky, go ahead. She's raised her hands first and, sorry. We'll get to you. We'll get to everybody.
That was practice from being a teacher. I'm Vicki Gatch. Over the past 14 years on the Historic Preservation Commission, I've researched a lot of Carroll's history. One theme that runs through all of Carroll's accomplishments has been the progressive, growth-oriented attitude of the city's civic, business, and educational leaders for the improvement of its institutions and of the community as a whole. When the 10-year-old, mostly wooden town of Carroll burned down in 1879, the business people and town leaders immediately began rebuilding a new, improved Carroll with brick buildings. 90 years later, the visionary city leaders again rebuilt a newer, up-to-date Carroll through the first urban renewal programs. 47 years ago, the Rec Center was part of these programs. As the 150th anniversary book about Carroll stated in 2017, progress has always been a hallmark of Carroll. Because of forward-thinking, civic-minded individuals and groups, in the past half-century, Carroll has grown to include New Hope Village, the Rec Center, the Corridor of Commerce, preservation of the depot, a new hospital, DMAC, the Conservation Education Center, new fire station, skate park and basketball courts, new industries, and expansion of existing organizations. In 2017, initiatives such as the renovation of Merchants Stadium, the rebuilding of the football stadium, and the upgrading of the city library and city hall continued the progressive movement forward into the next 150 years. Now, if Carroll is going to continue to grow, its leaders and citizens, like earlier generations, have a responsibility to continue this progressive movement forward and make it a reality. The proposed rec center plan will add to the improvement of the Carroll community in many ways. Having a more modern, updated, and expanded facility will benefit present citizens and attract new citizens. Please fulfill your responsibility to present and future citizens, continue Carroll's progressive history, and keep Carroll moving forward by approving funding for all of the rec center improvements. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Okay. Randy, okay. Go ahead, Randy. State your name again, please.
Randy Toft, 708 North Adams. I rise in opposition to the $7.9 million price tag added to $1 million plus of construction costs for remodel of the rec center. My opposition comes not from the project itself, but from the near $9 million of expense. I base this opposition on projects happening across our state at this particular moment in time. First, Norwalk, Iowa is starting on a rec building with 4 basketball courts, a walking track around them at ground level, and rooms for meetings and conferences. All of this at a new site, which adds infrastructure expense to supply the building, all for a cost of $9.5 million, within the reasonable amount of that we are going to spend. They get 4 inside courts on 14,000 square feet. Carroll gets a basketball court. As previously mentioned in council meetings, Sioux Center is building a turf facility, a year-round space with inflatable dome, 250 feet by 450 feet, completely floored with an artificial turf, plus an attached building to total 118,000 square feet, just shy of 3 acres. That's nearly equivalent to the full block of Vale Bank, the KC's, the daycare, and half of this block under roof. The Carroll area, all on a budget of $8 million, of which the dome has already been bid and came in, quote, well under budget, unquote. $8 million, they get 3 acres. $8 million, Carroll gets 1 gym. Humboldt built a new rec about 3 years ago. It was actually donated by a family, but again, at that time, $7 million with 70,000 square feet. Even if inflation eats half of that, it's 35,000. They have 3 pickleball courts, an enormous weight room, 4 basketball courts, batting machines in their own rooms, and a 6-lane ground level walking track. My point in all this is that for 2 weeks in this chamber, I hear this has to proceed to draw people. Here we are when offered work. This project doesn't even touch the facilities these other towns of our size that are spending or has spent $8 to $9 million on their recs. Councilman Dirks asked city employees if there was enough money to do the rec and Adams Street. The answer was a quick yes. The answer should have been no. Or if answered yes, that it includes a $2.5 million loan, a general obligation bond is shown by figures in the 22-23 budget. However, the engineering company reported a $3.2 million estimate for Adams Street. But at one point during the presentation, one of the presenters quietly let out that there was a possible high end of $4.2 million. Until the numbers are tighter for all of your projects, you need to pause and get a handle on it. I see that Carroll has grown by 200 people in the last 10 years. Norwalk has grown 40% in the last 10 years to a population of 12,000. Lastly, whether you're spending someone else's money or not, this is a really large sum. If I may be so bold as to throw out some suggestions. 1, make a line item of maintenance to address immediate issues that threaten the building itself, i.e. the HVAC and repairs of any safety issues. Apparently, this year's lost funds available could be over $300,000 alone. 2, scuttle the current architect. Their vision is obviously not within the growth as other designers that are assisting cities that have been discussed. So find one of these other architects and work it out to benefit the city for growth. And 3, using lost funds to finance this less than spectacular addition for the next 20 years now ties that money up to actually design and build something that may knock people's socks off and convince them to become part of our community. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Randy. We have an online question. Mary?
You'll need to unmute yourself, Mary.
Mary, can you hear us?
Yes, now I can.
There you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yes.
I appreciate all of the discussion, and I've reached out to all of you as council persons by email. I would just say that Obviously, I do want you to vote for this. I think it's a project that can be paid for. And when we argue about the language that was passed with the lost initiative, I believe that language is the perfect fit for this project. It spells out exactly what we want to have done. And while it does not specifically say the rec center, that's your role as council people. It directs you to make those decisions. And I am asking each of you to consider the decision and to go forward with the full project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. There's a hand. I don't know who it belongs to. Is it? Oh, hi, Ann. Her head was blocking your arm. I could see the hand, but that was it. Didn't know who it was attached to. Hi, Ann. Name?
Ann Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about Carroll. I am Ann Fitzpatrick. I was born and raised in Carroll. My parents ran a grocery store here for 35 years, and I was raised to shop in Carroll and be engaged in my community. My husband Tim and I have raised our family here, and we have enjoyed every aspect of the rec center for many years. Our daughters took swim lessons there. I've walked laps in the gym, and I've dodged balls while walking laps in the gym. Played pickleball there. We've been involved in many community plays, attended many dance and other performances in the theater. I feel the improvements to the rec center would generate new interest in memberships and promote healthier lifestyles for our families and friends. I'm here because I work at St. Anthony Hospital as the Human Resources Director, and part of my responsibilities include recruitment of staff and employee well-being. We have approximately 750 employees that represent our hospital, our senior services, and our clinics. St. Anthony has always been very progressive, and we routinely update and modernize our facility so that we can provide better care for our patients. We just added a new cancer center, as I'm sure you're all aware, and we are presently working on a 10-year master facility plan, much like you work on a 10-year plan for the city. Takes a lot of preparation and coordination to take care of the health of our community and our region. I take a lot of pride in St. Anthony and what we provide for our friends and neighbors. As the HR director, it's imperative that we recruit doctors, anesthetists, nurses, department heads, and many other staff to Carroll. When they come to tour Carroll, we have them tour our community. They always tour the rec center. We walk them through the rec center and show them the rec center. Many of our recruits, most of our recruits, are young, much younger than me, and they're looking for community amenities where they and their families can participate in physical activities and sports and team sports. When we're interviewing them, we're asking them not so much what their skills and they can do for the hospital, but what else would they like to do? It always comes up about what things they like to do outside of the hospital. Are we competing with other communities? You bet we are, because they want a balanced life. They're looking for ways to relax and improve their health. So what we as a community can provide to them makes the difference of whether or not we're going to have more doctors, more anesthetists, more professionals here to serve you and your family members. Having the rec center now and in the future is key for Carroll being a showcase and keeping the health of our community moving forward. Thank you.
And I have a question. Does the hospital currently have like a wellness program?
Yes, we do.
Do you guys partnership with the rec at all to utilize the rec as?
Well, that's a great question. They can do payroll deduction through our being an employee, but we do not get a discount through the rec center. We have asked every single year, but we do not get a discount for our employees. It'd be great if we did, because then they'd get, I guarantee you, they'd probably get more memberships.
So you're saying the city doesn't give a discount or you don't give a discount?
The
Which is
city does not give a discount.
Okay.
Most of the other businesses do. Most of the other fitness, without saying any names, fitness centers will, but the city does not. Thank you.
Thank you too, Ann. Anybody else? Right ahead.
Hi, Mel Short. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I moved back to Carroll in 2008. I grew up here. And when considering the move, the last item I considered was a rec center. I've spoken with people who moved back here as well and discussed what drew them to this area. The most common answer I was provided was employment. One of the last items mentioned was the rec center. I can tell you that from my personal experience, I've been to the rec center maybe a handful of times. The building was built in 1977, making it 45 years old. Buildings do age. I've worked on some of the systems in that building when I was at my previous employer. Locker rooms are dated and need updating. I agree, and that's clearly visible. As the building does age, some items do require maintenance, but with the scale of the project that was proposed, the issue would have been addressed. That part is true, but as with many of the projects in what seems to be the recent past, what starts out as a need becomes a major project with an extremely large price tag to be footed by the residents of our town. In the recent past, some of these that have been very visible include the jail right in the middle of our downtown, and you can't help but mention the modest city shed. We look at each other here in this town and keep asking, what's next? What are we going to be burdened with next? Something that makes much sense is a library with beautiful glass windows. They have a great view of a jail or a city hall in such a large building that many of the offices are not occupied. Let's not forget the pickleball courts that had to be built so they can be used by so many, only to defund Kellen's Kingdom that the few that know what it is, let alone actually play, may have something built just for them. How many people moved to Carroll for our brand new pickleball courts? Did you forget about the children with special needs that should have had taken priority over the pickleball courts? We can't even keep the aquatic center staffed during the summer to keep it open. But hey, let's just move forward with remodeled rec center. That's a solution. Common sense seems to be an uncommon virtue anymore. If any common sense had been used, part of the budget would have been set aside for items like this. Where are the funds that should have been allocated for this project gone, and why would people sitting in the seats of the city council not ask these questions? Who's accountable for these inadequacies? You need to look in the mirror to answer those questions. It's apparent the past direction the city council has been to try and compete with cities such as Boone and Ames with their amenities and facilities. Hate to tell you, we're not the same size as them, don't have the same tax base, so someone needs to tell you, we can't afford it. Did you hear what the resident said last time? Let me remind you, no. Like a parent to an unhappy child, no. The discussion is what's needed to bring people back to Carroll. What will make me want to say, I have to move there? Rec center, isn't it? Drive down Highway 30, look at all the empty storefronts, walk through the mall. Notice something missing? Yeah, open businesses. You can say, oh, it's due to COVID, the pandemic. Hate to tell you, it started well before then. Ask yourselves, why aren't more businesses coming to Carroll? Why don't we invest in bringing new businesses here, investing in them and their employees? This is what will help Carroll to grow and build a tax base to help fund projects, not a grandiose rec center. With all this being said, I recommend the project be scaled back to necessities for now. We have the highest inflation in almost 40 years, highest gas prices in 7 years. Do you really think the residents want to have an additional tax burden placed on their shoulders? Want to leave a lasting legacy? Take your money, your funds, and donate them to the rec center to fund the multi-million-dollar remodel. Let any citizen here in Carroll donate that to the cause. Get a fancy plaque to show the donors if you want. Use your funds. Reach into your own pockets and reach real deep. When you can't dig any further, only then you may feel what the rest of the majority of us feel when we look into our pockets for our daily expenses. Stop digging into our pockets, dig into your own. Thank you.
Right here. Yeah. I'll get you, Jeff.
That's something different, but that was so good. I love Carroll.
Name, please.
Ryan Gallegos.
Thank you.
I love Carroll, which would be obvious that I'm here on date night on Valentine's Day to talk about this. And what I hear in this community and in this room is sad. We're divided over a rec center. And here's why. The public was given misinformation. No matter what you want to say, the ballot language was seemingly smoke and mirrors, and it wasn't clear where the money was going. I've been in this community for 10 years. I've not seen it grow because of a rec center. That seems like more misinformation when you throw out things like that the city is growing, the CADC or whatever is saying that we're growing because of a rec center, because I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing population grow because of a rec center. We seemingly don't have new families flocking to Carroll. Is a renovated rec center going to change this? Why not spend the money to legitimately bring in businesses and to do things to boost economic growth? I hear the council talk of no raise taxes, but out of the same side of your mouth, the other side of your mouth, you talk about special assessments to fund street projects. Do you want the equity taken out of your home? I don't. I'd rather see the money go to growing the community. Infrastructure is a necessity. I keep hearing that word about the ballot language, about the necessities. I mean, what was necessary? Infrastructure, streets are necessary. A rec center is not necessary. Are there improvements that are necessary within it? Yeah. Update the HVAC. Stop running it in a deficit every year. Put money into studying how are you going to properly run a business that doesn't lose money every single year. We've got to come together as a community. And as a council, you should stand in front of this community and be honest about what you're going to do with our money. Yours included, all of it. Stand up, revote this thing. If you're honest, maybe you'll get exactly what you want.
Jeff?
Good evening. Jeff Sharpenkamp, 45 Deer Creek Lane here in Carroll. Been a lifetime resident of this community, which this summer will be 60 years. So I was here when the rec center was new. I was in high school. That was the jewel of this community. Whether you want to tell yourselves it didn't draw people, it did. If you don't believe me, ask people. Go visit with the Jim Knott. I had the opportunity, I know Laverne was there. Jim Knott today knows more about this community. I would encourage every one of you to spend a little time. Jim's advancing in years. Talk to that man. See what he says about this community. See what he says about what the rec center was and how that got done. But I guess I want to thank you all. I've been in that chair too long ago. But I know tonight, somebody's going to be unhappy. But it takes a lot of courage to sit in the chair. And I applaud that. At the end of the day, it's not personal with me. You'll make your own decisions. But sometimes I remember when I sat in the chair. Why do you sit in the chair? Why did you do it? Think to yourself, why did you do it? And only you know the answer. Maybe it's our taxes are too high. But for me, when I sat in the chair, I wanted to make Carroll the type of community that my kids want to come back to. It was that simple for me. We lose too many of our kids to other communities. And we can sit here and say, to some in this room, I know the rec center doesn't mean it. But you know what? We've got a community. It's an asset. We have an asset that's 47 or whatever the number of years that are old. I would call it almost borderline irresponsible not to invest in that asset. How many assets, if you had a house that was 47 years old, don't you think it needs some sprucing up? It's functional, it works. I think the city's been a good custodian of the facility, but it's tired. It's time to do something. And lastly, I guess I would say to you, what's the mistake you want to make tonight? You want to make a mistake and not do, and to do something that's too progressive? Because I'll tell you the one mistake, my back, the city is on very strong financial footing. If there's anything that annoys me more than anything, there are a lot of people who don't understand how much debt this community has relative. And whether you say, well, we're comparing ourselves to everybody else, it is relative. We have very little bonded debt out there. This project isn't even bonded debt. This is using local option sales tax dollars. You have an opportunity to do something that's the right thing. If you make the mistake of doing this project and you think, oh, heaven forbid, we spent local option sales tax dollars. Nobody's property taxes are going up with this. But what if we go the other way? If you don't do the project, how do you measure? Because it comes back to the decisions about the future of our community are made today. You don't decide and flip a switch and say, oh, we're going to change what Carroll is. If the snowball gets going down the other way, we can take a look. I think sometimes we take this community for granted. We're special. We are a very, very special community. I worked in Eastern Iowa for 4 or 5 years of my life, traveled a lot of that part of the state, was to a lot of towns similar, but nothing could touch Carroll, who we are. We're very, very fortunate. If we want to maintain that, we have to continue to invest in that. I think you've come up with a very fiscally responsible plan. I applaud the research and the efforts that you put forth to do this. I think it's time to make it happen. I would really appreciate your consideration to consider the full project. So have a good evening. Thanks.
Back in the corner, there was one. Is that Jean? Is that your hand? I can see hands go up, but I can't see the arms attached to them, so bear with me.
Hello, thank you very much.
Better state your name again, just one more time.
I'm sorry, I'm Jean Guy, recently retired from Kemper Catholic. I was here last week and heard a lot of really interesting comments from both sides. And I realized I didn't probably know as much as maybe I should have. So I went back and I found the articles where you guys said this or that, and I listened to what you said last week. And I tried to put it together with what I heard last week and what I learned this week. And I have this all kind of organized, but I'm going to probably say it all out of order right now because just responding to what people have said and so forth. But I guess the biggest piece of information that I learned this last week was when, I don't remember her name, but you mentioned her, I think, when the development director for Iowa, is that what she's called? The development
She's the
director from
executive,
Iowa.
yeah.
She had been placed by Governor Branstad and reaffirmed by Governor Reynolds. And so this Republican development director came to Carroll on Tuesday. And she was asked the question, you know about our rec center? I'm paraphrasing, sorry, but do you know about our rec center and what's going on? And she said, yeah, I've read about it. Well, what do you think? And in my own words, I think she said, it's a no-brainer. You go with it because cities move forward. And and she also added that research shows this. And in our world, which is so data-driven, our development director of the state of Iowa, appointed by 2 Republican governors, has said, do it. Now, that carried a lot of weight with me to reaffirm my original position, probably better. But anyway, then reading back and listening to last week, I listened to some of the arguments and I read one. Somebody was worried about whether we would have enough money for Adams Street renewal and all of that. But I think, if I heard it right last week, the council came up and they figured that we would have enough money to do this. So that seems to be one of the concerns mentioned by somebody on this council. It seems to be negated. Okay. Another council member questioned whether we've really built businesses in the last 10 years. What's happened? And I think it was alluded to just now. I don't remember if there's businesses built in the last 10 years. Well, my next door neighbor, who's very passionate about this too, she has found a list of 29 businesses that have occurred in the last 10 years. And if somebody wants to look at this list, I'm not going to read all 29, but there are 29 businesses. And I was thinking, local option tax. How do you get money from the local option tax? Well, wouldn't you get money from the local option tax by having people buy things in the town, making purchases? And wouldn't that happen when there are businesses? Correct? Am I right? Isn't that it? So 29 new businesses in the last 10 years are going to give the council some money, give the city some money. And in addition to those, we've had a lot of young people come back and they are taking over the businesses of their parents. And I won't mention any names. I think you guys can look around town and who's come back, who's taking over and who's getting ready to take over. And in addition, we've had a lot of young people come back and they're maybe in the medical field or they're dentists or something like that. But a lot of young professionals have come back into this town. And I'm just thinking, I realize it's a lot of money, but really I don't think it is a lot of money. Sorry. 20 years, you're putting that out over 20 years. You're really not talking about a lot of money in my estimation. I guess, and the last thing I would like to say is, I've heard somebody on this council made the comment, why didn't they fix this 3 to 4 years ago when they could have, and we wouldn't be dealing with this now? Exactly. But do you guys want to be the people that others are asking you that question 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Why didn't you fix it now? I had a friend downtown today who's actually a financial planner, and he was kind of ambivalent about whether he wanted it or not, but he said one thing. He said, the money of the study has already been paid. We're kind of foolish if we're going to go back. But anyway, those are just a few things. And I want to also thank all of you for your time. Like I said, here's my list. If you want it, 29 new businesses in Carroll. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. There was another one, Renee. I'll get to you, Kim.
So I'm Renee Brinks. I live here in Carroll. I grew up here in Carroll my entire life, went away to college, and I am one of those young people that came back to raise my family here in Carroll. Not because of the rec center. Came back here because it's my family ties. So I will tell you, I've lived here for 16 years with 4 children, and I've never once had a rec center membership. Okay. So I have a good paying job. And I will ask you, in the last couple of years, how many times has the rec center membership rate gone up? Do you know any of those facts offhand?
Maybe last year.
Yeah.
It's gone up twice.
Okay.
Last year in January, and then the January before.
Okay.
There's been 2.
And how many times has your amount of memberships gone down in those years?
Slightly.
Okay.
Every time we raise memberships, we lose a couple.
Yep. Okay.
But it offsets, the expenses, increased expenses.
Yep, exactly. So with this new increase in what you're planning to do with any maintenance that you're trying to do in the new study, or not the new study, I lost the word. Remodel that you're trying to do. Normally there's an increase in membership fees, correct?
And then there's probably going to be a decrease in amount of members. So with that, the reason that I am not for this remodel and maintenance thing, I don't foresee that it's going to bring people to the community. I'm one of the youngest people in this room. Would that be fair to say? Okay. And out of a lot of people, I'd like to know the average age of your memberships, because I think you'd find a real interesting study if you did that on the age of membership people versus how many people, the aged groups. Do you follow? If it's the younger generation, you guys are planning that we need to do this. We need to increase the maintenance. We need to redo this rec center because it's going to draw more people, the younger population. I disagree with that. I don't think the rec center is what is going to bring people back to this community. You know, I don't know if you've looked outside the box. I know I'm jumping from topic to topic to topic, but Kellen's Kingdom was done by fundraising. Has the rec center looked at doing any fundraising to try to lower the price from the local sales option? No, nothing. They're looking to borrow all of this money or get it all paid for. They're not trying to help out the cost at all. So those are just my points that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. I'll get to Adam. I'll get to Kim. Go ahead.
Kim Tiefenthaler, longtime resident of Carroll. I look back when the rec center was built a lot of years ago, and I know there was squabble back then about that's a lot of money to spend. Thank goodness for our council at that time that they pushed forward with this project, because that's meant a lot for Carroll. I mean, I've heard both sides of it. I've heard everything. But folks, if we didn't have that rec center, we'd have a big void in this town. Now, I understand Carroll because I've been around here forever. I know what it takes to keep Carroll moving. We have people that think Carroll is just fine, that we don't need to do any more for Carroll. Well, you know what? If the Bill Farners and the past mayors of Carroll would have sat on their hands in the councils like that, where would we be today? We'd be like some other communities, and I'm not saying any names by any means, but that's where we would be at. Now, some people disagree. It doesn't bring people to town. Yes, it does. It brings people to town. We had a presentation at Rotary today. Mike and Mark did an excellent job. What they told us on the numbers at Carroll, our bond ratings are high, very high. And Laverne and I were proud of that when we were on the school board. Same thing for us, because Carroll's been we've been good stewards of our money. Our debt load is not much at all for the size of our community. All the things we have in our community, a lot of them were mentioned, pickleball courts, the list go on. Folks, that would have not happened if we would have sat on our hands and were afraid to spend any money. So I'm just asking the whole council. I've heard a lot of good remarks from everybody, but if we're going to move forward, folks, we got to do this. And is it a surprise the bids came in high? No. Has anybody ever built a new house and that's come in on what you thought it was going to be? And we are in a different situation right now where I'm sure every bid for every project is high. Look at our poor jail, what happened there. But for this, you all got plans how you can make it work. So I think it's a great idea to move forward. I applaud all you for, like Jeff said, sitting in those chairs. I sat on the school board, went through the same thing, but I thank everybody for their time of serving and doing your homework. Everybody did a great job giving their points, but I think it's time to move forward. And I applaud everybody for sitting in those chairs and helping our community move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Adam?
Hello, thank you. Adam Schweers, 25084 Street here in Carroll. Just wanted to come out. I thought a lot of the planning that you guys had gone through was working its way towards a conclusion, having scaled the project back and listening to some of the public members about where things were at. And I kind of just got caught off guard within the last couple of weeks because I was at church and I was down at Herb's one night. And typically people who have generally been the people in my ear over the years saying, don't spend the money, were actually coming up to me saying, are they not going to proceed with that project? Because they really need to think about it. I said, well, I think they are. I don't know. So upon further conversations, I guess I found out that this was actually coming about and that there was a possibility we weren't going to invest. So I thought I'd just come down and state a few points. I grew up in Arcadia. We always had our swim lessons over here. My folks worked over here. 2-parent working household. Not a lot of things for kids to do in Arcadia. When I relocated here for my profession and chose to stay living in Carroll versus Arcadia, my kids now have reaped the rewards of the rec center. They're now a junior and a freshman, but I don't even know how many hours they have spent at the rec center. They're playing basketball, they're playing ping pong, they're swimming in the pool. It's a great place for them to go. They do a lot of the same activities outside, but we also have winter here. So 8 months out of the year, they're down there a lot. I don't personally use it a lot, but I will also tell you that that rec center is so much more than just a place for the kids to go. This weekend, we're going to have a lot of kids at it as we host a basketball tournament that we've been bringing to town for quite some time. And that brings in a lot of local option sales tax and a lot of opportunity for us to show our community off, communities from central throughout western Iowa. All Strings Attached puts on a couple concerts down there every year and pack the house. And that's a really unique offering that I'm not into symphony. Most of my family is really not musically inclined, except for maybe karaoke, and it's really bad in a basement. But honestly, everybody I talk to appreciate the fact that we have that facility to put those concerts on. I've had a lot of family members have hips or joints replaced over the years, and being able to go down and walk in the indoor pool is something that's been a really good thing. And in talking to the hospital, that's also been a positivity for a lot of people. My retired father-in-law went through a heart attack and really got into walking, and he walks and dodges those balls that somebody mentioned on a regular basis during the winter to prevent slippage on outside when walking in the winter. So I see the rec center being used by everybody. At Rotary this last year, we invite the top 10 students every year from Kemper and Carroll to come and visit with us about their plans. And one of the questions Mark actually started a long time ago was to ask the kids whether or not they would consider coming back to Carroll. And about every year, we'd have maybe 1 or 2 that would consider coming back. This last year, we had 7 from each school that said they have or already know they're coming back to Carroll. And I think that probably goes to a point of some of the retiring business owners, and they know that they maybe have a position within the family business to come back to. I think that as I travel the area and you look at competing communities, I don't like to get into competing against Norwalk. They're in Des Moines' backyard, and that place they were set up for success from the beginning. Pella has its own unique things because it has a college and a recreational lake. You go north and you've got there's always something that's different about a community. So it's really hard when you think about peer groups and you try to set people up for comparison. But Carroll's been a regional leader for where we're at. And a lot of people rely on the success of this community. A lot of other counties around us, in fact, rely on that. I was speaking to a business owner in Jefferson just this last week, and he said that the fact that we have a indoor pool helped them get some workforce. Those people are living in Jefferson but driving over here because they don't have an indoor pool over there in Jefferson. So there's a lot of different things that you almost think a lot of the time you're only focused on just what we have in our own backyard, but there's so many implications to what we're doing as a community and how we're positioning ourselves and helping and working with other communities that I think it's important to think about. And the local option sales tax, I remember being on council the last time that sunset. And I collected a signature of all of the mayors of Carroll County, went out, spoke with every one of those mayors, asked them to sign off on supporting our renewal. They didn't have to do that. It didn't have anything to do with their local politics, but they knew that what their citizens and their communities, by coming to Carroll and buying local and supporting Carroll, some of that money was making its way back out into their small cities. And $100,000 here and $75,000 there means a lot to the volunteer fire department, means a lot to their little parks project, means a lot to a lot of other people. So, we are a lot bigger than the 10,000, now 300 people that we have. This community grows to almost 20,000 people during the day. And those people are all also very appreciative of the investments that we're considering making and the things that we take care of. And I think that that's really important for us to think about too. So when you think about being that leader for the region, we are that. And so some of your decisions are a lot bigger than just the folks that you're representing in the areas of town that you represent. This is a pretty big decision. But that rec center is 47 years old, and we really do need to have some investment put back into it. And even if it is just HVAC and some plumbing and the raised walking track and an additional feature onto the east, that's still better than nothing for sure. And I would argue that in the future, we really do need to look at zero entry for children in the pool area. As I just got done talking to my buddy who's got a 3-year-old and an infant, and his wife only has 2 arms, and a pool that doesn't have zero entry is pretty tough to do. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that could be done, but I really beg you to consider this as something that is worthwhile and investing in. And there's a lot of people from 80 to 18 months that really are relying on you guys to push this forward in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Just in respect of everybody's time, I think we need to make a decision on this thing. If somebody has an antidote or a quick thing that maybe hasn't been brought up, now would be the time. I'm supposed to limit everybody to 5 minutes. I think we've been pretty close to that so far. Jeff, you got, yep.
I was biting my tongue. I wasn't sure if I should speak, but my name is Jeff Kaler. In a few months, I will have lived in Carroll for 41 years. I had the privilege of working for the city for 34 years. I worked under 8 mayors and I'd hate to guess how many council people, lots. And I've been coming to these council meetings for 36 years, probably more than everybody up there combined. The council frequently has been tasked with making very difficult decisions. And unfortunately, that's part of the job. One of the speakers, I think maybe it was Ryan, mentioned earlier that this has really created a division in the community. And I think that that's true. And I think back to my time here to the early 1990s, and those of you that were around remember the divisiveness that took place with the urban renewal discussion. There were a lot of businesses that were uprooted. There were a lot of businesses that were relocated. There was a lot of divisiveness. There were lawsuits, not compensation board, but the condemnation boards. It was just a very difficult thing. And the council, despite a vocal minority, had to make a very, very difficult decision. And I look back at the results of that urban renewal. This town is unbelievable because of that decision, just like the rec center was back in 1975 or 6, whenever it was. I don't think anybody could argue that the urban renewal project was not a huge, huge success. Our tax base for a town our size is probably one of the largest in the state because we make investments in our community through the streetscape, through the rec center, through our schools, through the hospital, and those types of things. I realize this is a very difficult decision. I realize all of you on both sides of the issues have had calls, probably angry for one reason or another in favor of or against. But as I mentioned when I was here last week, this is a representative democracy. We, the people, elect you people to represent us. Tom, you're my representative, to make difficult decisions. And this is one of them. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and I'm relatively certain I was at this meeting, June 20th of 2020, when Laverne mentioned that there was a public hearing on this exact issue, there was nobody there except me.
Mhm.
The time to talk about these things isn't now. The time to talk about them was June 20th, 2020 and before. Don't you dare vote on that. That's a terrible thing. Let your feelings be known ahead of time, but all too often when things happen, people come out of the woodwork either too late or after it's already done and complain about it. I realize everybody has feelings on both sides of it. I respect that completely. But I think this is an important project. Just last week, I got 4 calls on Tuesday from people thanking me for my comments on Monday. So I'm guessing you guys got dozens from people for or against the project. But again, I hope that this project can move forward. And I thank you for your time considering it.
Thank you, Jeff. Any last comments, or I'm going to toss it back to the council? Okay, we're at where the rubber meets the road. In our packet, we have 3 draft resolutions. The first one is to approve the entire package, which is everything that's we've talked about for the last month, including the alternate. And then resolution number 2 is to remove the alternate only and do everything else. And the third one, which I don't think any of us like, is to reject the bids. The bids are still alive for 30 days, and they came in on the 2nd, the 1st. So the bids are still alive. You know, I would hope and advocate that resolution number 3 to not be considered. I understand that it's a council decision, should there be a majority. What lies before us, unless someone's mind has been changed, is a 3-3. And that means no resolution would be adopted. And if we don't kill it with resolution number 3, there still would be 2 more weeks for someone to change their mind and to reach a consensus. Did I summarize that fairly closely? I have absolutely racked my brain and spent far more awake hours than sleep hours trying to uncover what am I missing. I'm sure collectively, all 6 of the council members have done the same, because I'm sure they're thinking, what can I do to move this off a dead center? And I'm frankly, I'm at a loss. Mike and I have worn each other out all week trying to come up with ideas, bounce ideas off of one another. And I don't have an answer for you tonight. The answer is that I hope and pray that we do reach some type of consensus. Again, I don't want it to be we don't do anything, because again, there's definitely some pressing needs down there, as I've stated over and over. Didn't I say don't rehash what you already have? That's me. Sorry.
We have come up with some information. I mean, we've given you, Laverne has said, I've given you the data on how this can be done with the lost funds. And the lost funds are for that purpose. It's for property tax relief. It's for the building and the renewing of our capital projects. I mean, that information has been put in front of all of you, everybody here. You've also been told that this is not debt. This is not raising your taxes. And we've already agreed to cutting some of the other stuff out that you asked for earlier in the last meeting. So we are already lowering some of those taxes you asked for.
Understood.
So
We all asked for it.
we are, but you asked specifically, so we are giving you what you've asked for. We are doing this project that we've spent $480,000 on in design. If we don't, where does that money go? Down the tube. We don't have time to start over. It's going to be way more. I understand that nobody likes that it came out ahead of budget, but we're not raising taxes. I don't know how much clearer we can be on that. I really don't. You asked for it to be paid for without raising taxes, and you wanted to lower taxes, and that's everything that we have given you today. All of you sitting right here, and we've explained it to you. If you all don't understand it, then we need to try to make it more clear, but this is exactly what we've done. There's no interest, there's no this, there's no that we're paying. I don't understand. What more do you want from us?
Well, I'll tell you, you brought up what we gave to them, which was 151,000 less in tax asking. So I'm going to ask for something in return. And tell me if I'm out of order, Dave, but I am going to make a motion. And that motion is to approve the base bid and add alternate one for the full project. We'd like something back. So I'm making that motion. Let's
You're
vote
doing
on it.
option A.
No, B, approve
The
base
option.
bid and add alternate one for the
Okay,
full
all right.
project.
Option B.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
That would be the full entire project. I just wanna make
Correct,
sure we're-
because we have the financial pathway to do it.
Yes.
And we were in agreement with you and very happy to work with you. And we also, we're happy to work at your goal to lower taxes. But now that taxes could be lowered and we have a path to do this without taxing people, to me, it's a no-brainer.
I
And
need-
it will, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I need to
Laverne.
bring up a couple things. If you delay this and you go to a public vote or whatever, the feds are thinking about increasing the tax rate. You're going to be borrowing money at a higher tax rate if this goes through. You need to think about that.
Possibly.
And the other thing is, Mark, we worked with you on the phase 11. That's $1.6 million that we're not in the budget with that. Okay? So,
For the design service, right. right.
well,
Yeah.
but we also talked about, yeah, we did the 25,000, we took that out. But the 1.6 million down the road is not allocated for phase 11.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we've known,
$480,000 that we've spent. We spent on a project that we really wholeheartedly spent a lot of time on, years.
Mhm.
I mean, for something that is much needed, this is not just a want. $480,000 that goes. I mean, I don't know. I can't think that anybody's going to be super happy about that. Nobody complained prior to now. That's what's so frustrating. We have had so many conversations. We have had so many meetings. I have talked to so many people. And in the last week, I have literally had 2 people say to me, don't do this project. Every other person that has walked up to me said, do this project. Everybody that has emailed me has said, do this project. I have had 2.
I've had one.
I've had one. One no.
So I don't understand. We have given the pathway to have it done. We have spent a lot of time on it. We are not going to increase the taxes. We are doing what we said we need to do with the lost funds. We're required to do it.
Put 3
What-
council people on because we were unhappy with the $480,000 and all the planning.
But it's already
And so
spent.
so people did speak up. We're now.
Well, why didn't
Council
somebody
people
come and
coming
talk to us?
So
Laverne.
And I'm waiting for a second.
Second.
We have a
So,
motion.
yeah, we have
I
a
will
motion.
second.
Who's gonna second?
It's
Let's
on-
just do the vote.
I'll second her motion.
Gotta move it along.
Very good. So there's a motion and a second to do the full project.
Correct,
Yep.
Mark. Yeah, option B.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Seaman,
Yes.
Shrek,
No.
Bauer,
No.
Base,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bornero.
No.
3-3, motion fails.
Perfect.
Okay, anything else on the rec? Is there follow-up to that?
It's not.
Second motion? Anything else?
Can you do a second motion to rebid and do the HVAC and bathrooms for? See, what I don't understand is there were three options. All in, no separate one outside. Do nothing was a fourth option, actually. And then there was the corridor, the bathrooms, the wet classroom, and the air conditioning for $3 million. Why is that not an option? To start fixing this up rather than going all in.
So
I guess I'm just confused. It's basically you're giving us an option to say all in or
We
nothing.
would have had these conversations beforehand, but go ahead, Mike.
Correct, but we weren't here
We've had them
beforehand.
for
We
2
could have had
months.
more conversations
Well,
in the last
month and a
couple
half.
weeks.
I don't think that anybody's been quiet. I mean,
I
I
think
think
we've
the
all- I
three
think
of us
we've all
have pretty much
expressed
made
that
that
we
very
want
clear
something
that that's what
done.
we want.
I do not want it to get
When you
fixed
say
up.
you and I, us three have definitely expressed that HVAC and locker rooms need attention. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
The hang up for us three is the gym and the walking track.
I get that, but we're trying to do what's best for the majority of the town. That's what our job is.
And I truly feel if it was in this ballot reading,
It was.
it would have failed. And that's what I've heard from a lot of the public people.
I have to agree with Kyle. I looked at that she handed me, and it says right here, authorized continuation of local option sales tax until repealed for an estimate of 7.6 to be used for project. What is that? If this is what the verbiage was in the vote, everybody's looking at it saying, let's continue local
Well,
option
It
sales
was a
tax.
referendum on the rec center.
Okay.
It was only the rec center that was.
I'm just
on
reading
the
what you
ballot.
gave me.
Right,
you
look at
know.
the top. It's the, yeah, I get it.
There was another verbiage that you used when you said you were, I wish I could go back and say what it was. When you were writing this, you used something, a word that struck me as odd.
I
What did
quoted,
number 2 say on that, when
Well,
you had to
we
vote?
voted and this failed. So can you say what you were going to say and can we move on? Because this needs to go to another conversation for another time at this point.
So the question was, why only these three options presented? I mean, the question before the council right now is on the disposition of the bids that we have. And so there's really only three options right now, is either to accept the full project, or back up. It's either accept the base bids, accept the base bids with the alternate, or reject the bids. Now, one of the options, and we talk about it in the staff report, one of the options is to scale back and rebid for the HVAC and locker room components only. That was discussed at the council. Now that at that point would be reject the bids and then direct staff to bring back a contract with RDG to send the plans back out to bid. I mean, there'll be a cost with RDG to repackage those plans and to resend those out. So that's certainly on the table. And really the course you'd need to take is to reject the bids and then direct staff to work with RDG to bring back a proposal on doing that. And they have talked to us. The work with RDG is in the ballpark of about $35,000 for that work. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
So now you're putting all that cost, the FF&E, the design, the miscellaneous, you're putting it all on just that one project, where now it's on both projects. So that amount of money is awful high for just the one project. Okay, so you know that.
Well, all resolutions, or the resolution failed at this point. And there would be really no interest in putting it out for rebid and doing just a scaled back version. Because you got to remember, that has to pass by majority as well. And you're
Kicking the can down the road.
you've already got
If you're worried about-
3 no's. So then the only other outcome of this then
Pushes it down, raises.
is that it's completely forgotten about, and all the effort and all of the expense is a wash.
We just wasted it.
Yeah, that's a lot more than the 151,000 in tax asking, isn't it?
And the
That
amount
you
that
just,
the
I think
payment
it's
was going to go
also
up.
kind of sad that you're not considering that
Yeah.
there were options here.
I
We
don't-
could have done
yeah.
the locker room. We could have done,
I don't see the connection between the two, but
well, make a
I don't
motion.
either.
yeah, I mean, they were 2 different agenda items. I mean, there's not a connection there, but
The locker room
I
and
believe
the HVAC could have been done. We could have had it figured out somehow. But, I mean, we went full Monty, voted no, and at this point, we're done, right?
So the locker room and corridor all affected adding a gym and a walking track. Is what I'm trying to understand. The bids that came in all circled around adding a gym and a walking track. Nothing else could be done unless the gym was added and the walking track. Is that my understanding? So if I looked at the bin, it wasn't broken down where it says can't do any of this
Correct.
without the gym and walking track,
Right.
period.
It was a lump sum bid.
Yeah.
Right.
with the only alternate being the West fitness rooms.
Mhm.
That was what the alternate was, but everything else was a lump sum full package deal.
And that's because by plan, we have spent a lot of time scaling back and cutting back what we originally started with to try to get to the best project that we could get to with not just our input. There were other city people there, other business leaders at those meetings. It wasn't just us. We had a lot of input.
So getting a little done instead of all of it isn't better?
That wasn't the direction we were going. We've been working on this for years, and we've paid the design fee, and we've scaled back, and we've cut back, and we've tried to make the majority of town happy. We've tried to do the best for everybody that we could.
But with the aquatic center, we only got a little bit. We have to be satisfied with that.
What do you mean?
We didn't get to Lazy River.
Okay, but you know what? I
So we
wasn't
have to-
part
I
of
mean,
that,
I'm
and
just saying we have to be happy with
that
that.
should not come up tonight. I understand that you all are unhappy, but then we need to bring that back to us for next year's or the next year's capital plan. I get that. I've heard it. But that doesn't pertain to this council right now and what we're trying to talk about.
You can
So
pick out
those that,
pieces of it.
but those that were upset because that didn't happen shouldn't affect the fact that we're not moving forward with our capital projects now. This is the last one we had to do. The last thing we had to do for any capital project in this town to advance forward and finish. And we were doing it with lost dollars, not raising your taxes. I do not understand.
And the aquatic center and the lazy river were two separate referendums, several years apart. They weren't together.
I think the point that's being missed, though, is that that's what people expected to become of that project. That project never came to fruition.
But why are we hashing that out tonight?
Because that
This
is
is
one of
not
the
what we're
many
talking
reasons
about.
why people are upset.
But
That
that's
is
not
one
what
of
we're talking
many.
about.
Let's do this. Yeah.
That's not what's on the
Yep.
table
I
tonight.
understand that, but you want to understand why we are
So-
voting no.
So people need to come
We're
to
trying
us
to make you understand.
and talk to
This
us
is the
before now.
reason why they've come to the three of us.
Just recently, not 2 years from now. We
Since
have been
October,
working this
I
for a
think that
really
people
long
have
time, and we
very
spent
much
a
been-
lot of time
Okay.
and money.
All right, yeah. Let's, it has been suggested that we take a break, but before we do so, Mike, you had a slide you wanted to show.
And I just wanted to show this.
And it's still regarding the rec center.
Yep, this is the bid form that everyone received and then all of the bidders would have bid on. So, it talks about when bids were due. There's basic legalese. They have to acknowledge they received the addendums. And then they provide us a base bid for the lump sum of the base bid. And then they provide us a lump sum for the ad alternate. So that is the information we have. It doesn't break down any further than those two numbers on the bid. And then they do provide us who their prime subs are for the project, and then they sign and submit their bid. So there is no further breakdown.
And that was approved by council action, I think, December 20th, roughly. I
With
think.
the plans and
Yeah,
specifications.
It was,
So to understand that though, you said it's all one lump bid, but yet you've got two bids and do all or nothing. So how did a one lump bid get separated into two bids? Basically, do it all minus the outside fitness center or nothing is what I'm saying. Is where is it in this bid that said we could have done that for $3.3 million? There was another option.
Well, there's no other option. Now, RDG in the report, if you're looking at the report on page 3 of the report, RDG did break down and provided some cost estimates.
Right.
But they're not in the bid itself.
Right.
This is their estimates of it. There's no bid for these amounts. So, yeah.
So to do that, we would have to start all over.
At least through the bid process.
Yes. And you got, what, 35,000, or how much engineering costs we got to add to it?
About 35,000.
35,000 we'd have to add on top of that. And like I said before, all that design and all that cost is going to be attached just to that project now instead of the whole project.
okay, enough for now. We're going to take a short recess, probably 10, 15 minutes tops. Very good. We are back in session. We move down the agenda to under item 8 and reports. The first one would be a proposed fiscal year 23 debt issuance pre-levy resolution discussion. Laura?
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
We thought it would be a good idea just to talk a little bit about what a pre-levy resolution is through this whole budgeting process. So that's why this is being brought forth, because this information will be coming again at the next council meeting. So the fiscal 23 proposed budget does contain a debt issuance for street improvements and partial funding for the rec center building improvements projects. However, it is planned that, or anticipated that this debt would be issued until after July 1 in 2022, which is our fiscal 23 budget. In order to include this debt in this budget, that's to be approved by council, the fiscal 23 budget, we would need to walk through a process and conduct a pre-levy resolution process. In order to include this tax asset into the fiscal 23 tax levy, a public hearing will need to be conducted and a pre-levy resolution approved. This process would start at the next council meeting. The pre-levy resolution tells the public that the city has a need for money to pay for debt service or to pay back some principal and interest in our fiscal 23 for specific projects from debt that would be sold at a later date. The pre-levy resolution gives the basis for the debt service to be included in this upcoming fiscal 23 budget. The current proposed fiscal 23 levy does incorporate a repayment amount of some principal and interest in the amount of $349,569 for this debt issuance. A not to exceed debt issuance amount will need to be determined, and once that is determined, city staff can work with PFM financial advisor to determine a repayment schedule. So at the next council meeting, we'll ask council to approve a resolution to set a public hearing date on this debt issuance. And then the public hearing would be held on March 14th prior to adopting the fiscal 23 budget. 2 separate resolutions will also be presented at that time, a resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action, and then a resolution levying a tax for the repayment of the debt in fiscal 23. Wanted to have a discussion so council understood kind of the next steps coming up through this whole budget process and what is all involved. So this is a time to ask questions about what a pre-levy resolution is, if you've got more questions, and how this will work into the fiscal 23 budget.
And this is just setting the amount, but it's always able to be lowered.
Yes.
The maximum amount always able to be lowered.
Correct. Yep. And this would also set the projects that you would be looking to do at that time.
One thing too, so with the pre-levy resolution, we'll be doing this after the maximum levy public hearing that we'll have at the next meeting. And yes, while you can lower it, we start running into timeline issues. And so, the cautionary note is when we set the resolution at the next meeting, if you want to lower it, we'd really highly suggest telling us at that point. Now, certainly there's a public hearing process, but again, to get it fully integrated into the budget that we'd also be approving the same evening, it's a timing issue for us to delay it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And certainly, obviously, as Laura mentioned, and I'll reiterate, this does include dollars for the rec center. Now, Clearly, if the council makes a decision not to move forward on the rec center project, what we would recommend from a staff perspective is we reallocate those dollars to street projects. And what we'd be talking about in tax askings for next year would be $349,569. So it's not the full dollar amount for the streets and the rec center. That's, what is that? What's the total bond tax asking? I have it here.
Well, it's almost 907.
It's 3.23 million for both Adams Street and the rec center. It's not that dollar amount. It's just the debt payment we'd be making in fiscal year 23 of the 349,569 principal and interest. So, and it's important that we've always managed our levy rate to kind of keep it stable over the long run. And so while, yes, you could lower it 1 year for the debt payments we'd look to be doing in fiscal year 2024, we'd have to bring that back up. And so what we would suggest is we accelerate just repayment of some of our debts with those dollars, if that makes sense. Is there any questions on that? And is that a acceptable approach to council?
I'm fine with it.
Seems to be then. So then on the next item, B being, that set the max tax levy, we'll set that date in 2 weeks.
Well,
Or
tonight we'll set the date for the public hearing to be held in.
Public hearing in 2 weeks, and then we actually set it on the 14th. Did I misunderstand that?
No, so the next item, are we ready to move on to the next item? Were there any other questions with the pre-levy discussion?
Yeah.
We weren't asking for any action on that. We
Just
just wanted to bring
discussion.
some information to council for
Right.
that item.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
the next item is to set the public hearing for the max property tax levy for fiscal 23. And that public hearing date would be held, or the public hearing would be held on the next council meeting, February 28th.
I'm with you. Thank you.
If you recall, we've talked a little bit about this during our budget work sessions. A few years ago in in 2019, the state legislators passed a bill, Senate File 634, that aimed at adding some transparency in this whole budgeting process, where we are required to hold an additional public hearing, what we're working on right now, that would look at just a few of the components of the levy instead of the whole overall levy, but just a few of those components, which in our case is the 810, the tort liability, and our employee benefits levy. If you take a look at the public notice that was included in your packet, this is what will go to the paper upon council setting of the public hearing. It's broken into three main columns. The first column is the taxes that were certified for fiscal 22. That's what we're currently collecting taxes on. The second column says, what would your levy rate look like if you kept the same dollars asked as your current fiscal year, but you applied the fiscal 23 taxable valuations to it? What does that do to the levy? As you can see, it goes from $10.42 of what the actual levy is to $10.54 if we applied the fiscal 23 taxable valuation. The reason it went up is because, yes, our taxable valuation went down slightly from fiscal 22 to fiscal 23. Then the last column is then what's being proposed for fiscal 23 on the different levies that we're required to include. What is your regular taxable valuation, the actual tax dollars you're asking, and what is that levy? Your tax levy, or excuse me, the tax dollars asked, as well as the tax rate. And this does show that there's a slight percent decrease of 0.83% decrease from the prior fiscal 22 tax asking. So part of the reason why they show the percent change, or why we have to show the percent change, is if the asking would increase by 2% or more, then it's required to have a 2/3 majority of your council approve it. Well, in our case, 2/3 is majority, 4 of 6 is majority. So in order to pass a resolution, we always need 4 of the 6. So that threshold isn't as impactful to Carroll as it might be to some other communities that have a 5 or 7 member council. So this levy that's set here tonight does incorporate the changes that were discussed at the last budget work session of decreasing the tax asking by 151,000. So tonight, when you set the public hearing, it sets the max levy. It could be decreased if so desired, but it would set the max levy at that time.
Okay, and that's at the 1045.
Yes,
Yep.
and the way this is prepared, this is at 1045. You have $10.45 for those particular levies. Remember, it does not include the debt service levy. That is another component of our overall levy.
So if we're gonna make a change, this has to be done tonight.
Yes.
Before the public hearing.
Yes.
So, clearly, I mean, I'm proposing that we go back to the way we started, before all of this went on. I'm personally not willing to give up the additional funds that we gave up the last time we had our meeting. So I want to put those dollars back in the budget at this time.
I would agree. Especially considering the rate of inflation. And when we were increasing just 3%, we're already almost 5% behind the curve considering inflationary costs. So for me, it's off the table.
I'm gonna put in some dollar figures on this. We're concerned about not spending local option sales tax for the rec center, but we put local option sales tax in this to lower the amount that you were wanting. If we're concerned about it on this, then I'm saying that 86,000 we need to put back into loss.
I fail to see the connection, but that's on me.
I feel I don't get the connection when people didn't, talking about ballot language, when we had all these meetings, all these tours, all, public hearings. And if people choose to stay uninformed, I don't know what more we could have done to get them informed. It was in the paper. It was reported as these funds were approved for the rec center. And you're getting all hung up on something from people who chose not to be informed or confused and didn't seek information. We're all, they're adults. They voted. We can't be responsible and make our decisions for the city based on people who chose not to be informed. And now after the fact, they're all whipped up about the ballot language. So that's why I do see a connection, Mark. I do see a connection that with what Laverne just said.
So we agreed to take a couple of these things out, which was a comprehensive plan of $35,000, is that correct?
Yep.
And then design for phase 11.
Well, no, that's a different thing. That's TIF.
Yeah.
So that 35,000
And a more.
and a mower.
And then we're going to balance it by taking out of lost. We're spending lost dollars.
So even though that we were in agreement for the most part on the $35,000, we want to throw that back in there. That's where I'm confused. Just because it's split more or less.
So, and to go back to that split vote, is it too late to make a motion to ask everybody to rebid it and vote, or are we past that? Because
What do you mean
I don't think
rebid?
anybody up here wants nothing to do for the rec center. I don't think anybody on this whole panel wants us to not do anything to the rec center.
I'm in agreement with that,
Okay, so
but I'm not willing to do only a partial part of the program. And I
Okay.
would highly
Explain your
have,
question a little bit more, Tom.
So you made a motion to do the rec center all in,
Or an alternative.
or an alternative, or nothing.
Well, you guys could have made a motion.
And that's fine, but is it too late to make another motion to say,
There's three
can we
motions.
look at
There was 3 motions.
evidence?
Resolutions.
Well, we've already voted and that's done, but you guys could have jumped in to test the waters and say, hey, I'll make a motion.
Well, I want to make it clear that
There.
not any of us are on this panel saying, don't do anything to the rec center. The motion that I'm hearing and that I did hear, because it's really eating at me. It's either we do it all or we do nothing. And I'm gonna be mad. My motion would be, let's look at it and rebid it and do something and start
Well,
with the renovation of this. I'm not,
yeah,
none of us are saying, don't fix it up. I mean, maybe you're misconstruing what we're saying or wanting, but it's the fact that it's over budget. And I'm glad that Laverne or everybody can find money to come up with this proposition just out of all our pots. Is that what you want to call them? But the bottom line, it was over budget, so it needed to be looked at. And as I look at this, it has separated rebid HVAC locker room portion, $3,358,000, but I'm being told that it's the same way, all or nothing. So when we sent this to these guys to bid, I don't understand how they could not separate it all out and say, look, well, the locker rooms are going to cost this much. It's going to be this plumbing. What I'm saying is we want the rec center to get fixed up, but that's a lot. What I was going to make a motion for is do something as far as rebid the HVAC and locker room portion, or as it says, locker rooms, wet classroom, corridor renovations, which is a big chunk of it right now. If you
that-
just did that, it would be
you
fine.
could have made that. Nobody prevented you from making.
Well,
a
is it too
motion.
late now, is what I'm saying?
And also the verbiage left it open, project options. The following options could be considered. And then there were 3 listed down below. These are possible. Nobody prevented you or
Well,
anyone else.
option C was reject all bids.
Pardon me?
Option C. So you got option A, option B, option C, reject all bids.
Could I interject
No.
here for
Yes.
a second? Because I think ultimately, while it's an option to change the scope of the project and go a different direction, and let me read specifically what option 3 of the project. Now we're kind of going back in the agenda.
Yeah.
But
And I
it says-
apologize, but
no,
I
that's
just-
fine.
Oh, that's
I really-
okay. That's
So what
okay.
it says is scale back and rebid only the HVAC and locker components of the project. Based on the bids using previous estimates from May 21st, 2021, RGG estimates the overall project cost for the HVAC and locker room components to be $4,268,500. The project would be overfunded by $3,358,500. The key words are, again, scale back and rebid. So you'd have to reject the bids and then enter into another contract with RDG to rebid the project. And then the RDG estimated the overall cost. Again, so that's an estimate. So it certainly, this wasn't based on any of the bid pricing that was given to us by any of the contractors. So those are the key things is, yes, ultimately, the council, if they choose, they want to go a different direction and do the HVAC and locker rooms, they're going to have to reject the bids and then proceed with RDG, or they could go with a different architectural firm. Now, the cautionary note is you're going to pay a new.
I don't want to pay that upfront fee of the $500,000 again or do something. I want them to look at this because they quoted it out in locker rooms, wet classroom, corridor renovations, $2,850,000. So somewhere based in their analysis of getting this job done, they lumped all 3 together. It's not just the locker rooms.
That is correct too.
So-
And so that would, again, to just say we're going to do the locker rooms, for example, the locker rooms, the way it's designed is destroying part of the corridor area. And so if you're going to choose to refashion the plans, you're going to be redrawing the plans, and you're going to incur a fee of probably about 8% architectural fees. That's about the going rate of whatever your construction prices are. So the question becomes if you want to completely retool it. That can be an option, but
Is that a motion I have to present now?
it would
or
be
an
a
option?
motion at some point a council member would have to present.
Well, then I would make a motion to rebid the HVAC and locker room portion, or possibly wet classroom corridor renovations. Just to let it state, we don't want to not do anything to the rec center.
But then you're including all, if you go down that chart, all those extra costs are going to be just for that. You understand that? You see that?
$4.268 million. That's half of what's being asked for right now.
But then also.
To do a majority of it.
But remember now, the public okayed 7.6.
Of renovation monies through loss to be put towards something
Exactly. So now
in
you
the city.
So now you're telling the public, I don't want to spend 7.6, I'll spend 4.2.
Okay,
Tom,
but
it
the
did-
public,
No.
to make it clear, you just said 7.6 should be spent on it. Now you're going to come up with extra money that the public didn't vote on to spend on it. Am I right?
Tom, the referendum was called specifically to vote on a rec center project.
Okay.
So when they approved Lost, they knew they were voting on a rec center project. That's why the referendum was called. It was all about what are we going to do with the rec center? It wasn't like, it wasn't, as you said, it was a rec center referendum. Right.
And it didn't state that you had to spend it all at one time.
Anything. Yeah, so it was a referendum project. They said no to the 5.9 and essentially scaled it back monetarily, but approved Lost for a rec center project. That was the point of the referendum. That was the title of the referendum. If people couldn't read the title of the referendum, it's not on us.
I got
Not on
I got a
us.
question for you. Is
I don't get it.
the local option sales tax, that money's coming in every year, constant. What's your plans for that money?
Streets. Make sure that the streets are taken care of. Making sure that Adams Street doesn't get assessed.
Now, I just told you.
I'm
aren't-
saying I'm not against doing
On the
anything with
ballot
the rec center.
language that we said, you've heard that, and I said it once and Carroll said it twice. It's for improvement projects to enhance the necessary city facilities.
Mhm.
Streets, are they facilities?
No.
I guess call me a dumb citizen, but when it was put out there as far as.
Would
the
you
law-
step up to the
Sure.
mic? So,
I'm on the same page with you. Can I come with him too?
yes.
Yeah. So,
I'm sorry.
call me a dumb citizen, but when this went up for the reading for getting lost funds for the rec center, there's nothing that was described to any of us. I never heard anything being brought up for rec center. And yes, you want to narrow it down. You say you don't want to narrow it down for the fact that you don't want to have it so that you only appropriate to certain projects. I get that.
So you.
But
when
number 2 on the column did say
Excuse
rec
me,
center, correct?
Excuse me, stop.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The referendum was called for a vote on a rec center. It was just like we had a vote for a lazy river. We had a vote for an outdoor aquatic center.
Yes.
This was,
I
it
understand
wasn't
that.
a referendum just to go.
I understand that.
helter-skelter.
But what I'm saying is that if item 1 would have been brought about and had a description what it was going to be intended for.
We did. We had a
Yeah.
public hearing and no one
I never
showed
heard
up.
about
But
it.
on the ballot.
I
what
never
did
heard about it,
It
so
was-
call me a dumb person for not hearing about it. But then when it's come up for all public opinion, people say, hey, they haven't heard nothing. Nobody reached out to me. Well, very few people reached out for my opinion on the rec center. Very, very few people ever did. Kyle did. I spoke with JJ about it, spoke with Tom. Nobody else reached out to me about it.
I've never met you before, so I wouldn't know to reach, but you could have contacted me. But anyway, it was purely a rec center referendum and that was it.
I guess one thought too is that I've been in the trades almost all my life, heating, air conditioning, and plumbing. We talk about the money we spent, almost $500,000 for the design, architectural drawings, and everything else. It is a ton of money. And I'm not saying I don't want anything done with the rec center because it is a good facility. It needs the bathrooms done. I've worked on that heating and air conditioning. It needs to be replaced.
Okay.
But let me ask something of you. When we looked at the scope of the project, like Thomas said, why didn't we look at it from the standpoint of we have option A with the base with mechanicals and locker rooms because we know that that is a definite need, and then break the bid apart for the other things. The money that we spent at this point is not for lost. I mean, it's there. If we decide to move forward with it, we still have the architectural drawings. We still work with RDG, but rebid it so that the people have a fair, nice facility that they can use. Don't just sit here and say it's all or nothing. Definitely put something forward that everybody that can agree to work on is the bathrooms and the mechanicals. Agree with everybody. This has gone on way too long, but we have such divisiveness in this community.
Well-
At the very least, move forward. We have over 7 million appropriated. Absolutely. I have money in my bank account. Does that mean I have to go and spend every penny? No.
Thank you for your comments, but we really,
Yes, I agree.
no, you're fine. But I mean, I mean, we've debated it for
Yeah.
well over an hour and we're at a point of impasse.
Sure.
There still remains a motion on the floor to put it out for rebid with repeat your motion, but put it back out for rebid for a scaled down plan, including heating and air conditioning and
Locker
the
room.
locker rooms. Did I paraphrase that? There's a motion
Sure.
on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So there is a motion and a second.
Can I ask a clarification question? Just to, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. So the way the plans, and certainly we'd have to have a discussion with RDG, but the way the plans are laid out, I don't believe you can renovate the locker rooms the way that are shown without impacting the common space. And so it is going to be the way the plans are drawn. It would be a locker room, the wet classroom, and the corridor renovations. So just if everyone's, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Well, no, it's the dollar amount. Ultimately, it would be the 4.2685 million. But I don't want any misunderstandings later of that. That's what that motion is. It's not just the locker rooms, but it's those other components.
Well, I'd like to make that motion. Rebid HVAC locker room, wet classroom, corridor excuse me, renovations.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Shrek?
Yes.
Fornero?
Yes.
Seaman?
No.
Dirks?
No.
Bauer?
Yes.
Base? No. 3-3.
So that fails as well. Okay. So we're back to Misty's point where she wants to, she's suggesting to put it back in the savings that we discussed last week. And once again, we need to set a public hearing date, which is how we got to this point. And once again, if it's a 3-3, that's not good.
Okay, I'll try
So-
again. Okay. Under
Please.
value engineering, it says the council would decide if we would decide to move forward with the project and take on value engineering process, which we do not have to do. Okay. It's our choice once the contract's signed. It's up to us if we want to do value engineering. And if you think it would be feasible to look at the materials, look at whatever, even though we're cautioned that, you want low maintenance, durability, et cetera, I would make the motion to again tweak option B a bit, approve base bid, and add alternate 1 with the inclusion of value engineering. So I'll make that motion.
There's been a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There is a second. Any further discussion?
Does everybody understand what that means? I mean,
It's the same thing as the first one, we're just adding value engineering. The
Right.
first time we voted.
which means what?
With the hopes of finding some savings.
We're to definitely look at,
So not only are we paying it with our lost funds, we're looking at speaking with our contractor to see if we can choose some different products and make the project cheaper. And we continue to keep things as they are, which again, we're showing that taxes are
Right.
lowering.
and whatever, and according to the memo, that the city architect and contractor would work together to identify possible areas where savings could be achieved. But once selected, a change order with the reduction would be presented to the council for final approval. So they don't just do it automatically.
It's got to get.
What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
What's going on?
I'm asking if Mark was able to vote on that last motion, is my question.
Well, let's just say that now.
No, because
I was trying to just ask him to not interrupt the entire thing.
Well, it's a resolution.
Because it still
It's the
eventually has to go to a
resolution,
resolution. So, thanks for asking, but
Where were you at? I'm sorry.
I made the motion that we go with option B, the base bid, and add the alternate, and definitely include an attempt at value engineering and see what they come up with, because ultimately the council would decide what to move ahead with, all, part, partial, or nothing, to see if it would be valuable in cost savings. Because it would be ultimately the council's decision to determine the cost savings.
And from what I understand, I mean, value engineering can be done in a matter of a week or less.
Right.
So we're not going back to base bid. I've already talked with Nick Beatty. So I asked the question specifically because I wanted to know, because I didn't know. And he said, there are certain things that can be talked about and we can have answers back to you within a day or two, a week at the latest. But he also said, we don't want to go to the point of cheapening the project up to nothing, because this is what has kind of happened with our jail. So let's not go there. Let's figure out how we can do this. But we have to accept the bids, knowing that we could hopefully all work together as adults to agree on products that we can bring the price down in. I don't know.
It's an idea.
The only reason, and I did raise the specter on the 1 week, there are some areas of the value engineering that could take a little bit longer. Working with RDG, for example, there's areas where there's a lot of glass glazing. We could eliminate some of that glazing. That would take a little bit of time to do from an architectural standpoint, but it would lower the cost of the project.
They're probably not going to charge us to rebid.
Correct.
Oh, no.
And
Not
RD,
out the $480,000.
correct. And we did ask RDG the question, if we went through the value engineering process, would there be an additional fee for that? And they did confirm today, right, Chad, that there would be no cost for that.
I don't know. It's, trying.
so there still remains a motion and a second. And is there any further discussion?
I have one other question. So if we go ahead with this, we have to accept the bid, and then you're moving forward regardless, whatever the value engineering does save us.
That's correct.
And again,
Note if you don't move forward, either way, I mean, your price is going to be way more by the time this comes back around, whether there's a vote or not a vote, and the next council decides to spend loss to do it. If there's not a vote, your price is going to be higher, absolutely higher, because it'll take time for the new council to come up with a plan of what they all want done. And with everything going the way it has been since I've been on, prices have continued to go up, so.
and I have to tell you, this whole thing started with the pool. Misty and I were on the committee with multiple people over the years. We were on the pool committee at least. It took us 6 years to come up with the $13 million project. Working with David Schwartz from Water's Edge, from Kansas, did 6, 7 different configurations. We had to have a certain number of bathrooms based on the water surface area. People wanted more changing rooms, so we had to reconfigure. I mean, Missy and I were on a committee for 6 years.
Was there any other questions?
Yeah.
Because we still have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Dirks,
Yes.
Shrek? No. Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
No.
Ordinary?
No.
Seaman?
Yes.
3-3 motion fails.
So we are back to setting that public hearing date and knowing what the maximum levy will be. As Misty has suggested, we put all of that back in there that we agreed to remove on last week. And once again, this is when we get to the point to approve the budget, pardon me, it could end up being a 3-3. It could. You know, it's I'm out of words. I don't know where to go. I mean, it's quite frankly, I mean, well, I've already stated it. I don't know how the two are connected, but you know, I'm sure those that do. So I've got to hear what the council's wishes are moving forward as far as we can always set that public hearing date, but for what? And we need to have that discussion. I mean, we need to come to a conclusion for that. I mean, if you're asking me to trade $151,000 for half of a $9 million project.
And the 1.6 tip.
Yeah. Then, I mean, we're back to a tax increase for our citizens and, you know, we're still going to move ahead with a rec center project of some scope.
How are we moving ahead with the rec center project of some scope when it was just?
No,
voted down?
what I just said was if I'm going to have to trade that $151,000 of general fund money, you know, forego that and support a $9 million rec center, you know, that's my point. And
Taxes aren't being raised.
I understand that, Misty. Everybody gets that. You know, it's not, there's only a small portion of it coming out of property tax.
What I see up here is I see 2 sets of 3. Okay.
I think this is between us at this point.
Well, I'm gonna say something because you guys, I elected. Can I say something or not?
Quickly, yeah.
Okay. What I see right now is I see 3 sets of, a set of 3 and a set of 3, wherever you guys all are. Because you guys, nobody can come with a right answer. Everybody wants a better Carroll. Some of you guys want an elaborate Carroll, and some of you guys want a downsized Carroll. And everybody's saying no, no, no.
We can downsize.
Yeah, but obviously not enough because you guys are all against each other. Can I speak? You keep interrupting me, dear. But what I'm saying is that nobody's going to agree with anything at the rate you guys are going, is what I see, for whatever it's worth.
Yeah.
But if you guys can compromise somehow, that'd probably be for the best of Carroll. Otherwise, you guys are going to disagree on everything.
I think we did compromise in that we worked with you in good faith to reduce the tax asking by 151,000. We did compromise, Mark. I feel I did. And I'm trying to see both sides. So we worked in good faith. took things out of the proposed budget and said, okay, we will throw these things out and get you what you want. I'm not into giving 100% and getting nothing back. There's councils have give and take. And when we aren't raising taxes, it mystifies me that we go along with you to lower taxes and we want a nice amenity which would serve all ages, all groups in Carroll, outside of Carroll for decades. And we seem unreasonable. I don't think so.
Carolyn, they were two different items on the agenda, two different discussions. I mean, sure, they occurred on the same night.
No,
but
we're talking
just-
about the entire budget though, Mark. That's how they're connected, where it's always give and take in the budgets. And so that's what it is. It's give and take to arrive at a levy. And we understood you wanted to lower taxes, and we worked with you and compromised and worked with you. And so it is related because we're all working on all the moving
So
parts.
what were
in
you
the budget.
expecting of me? I can't cast a vote here.
I'm not expecting anything. I'm
So
just
what-
saying
what's
that we worked, you
These were
suggest-
just suggestions I made, and there were some others that
Right,
others
right.
made that I didn't even know anything about. So I mean,
Yeah.
why this is directed at me? I mean, I'll take it, but it was a discussion among 7
Well, I guess
policymakers.
I'm directing
So-
it at you because you're the mayor and just respectfully talking about how I view the relationship. I know we all worked at the compromise. I said that. Councils have give and take. I was addressing it to you because you are the mayor, you're leading our discussion, and I'm responding to you as the mayor. That's it.
Point taken.
Thank you.
Well, I really don't know what else to say. I don't want to keep the furnace on longer than it has to be, but we need to reach a decision on this thing. And if it means throwing the $151,000 in there to appease 3 of the council members, then that is what the other 3 council members have to consider. And that it's either going to be a stalemate or we come together.
You're also talking about 1.6 million also that you wanted all taken off for the streetscape. Don't forget that.
Streetscape 11, right?
Phase
So
11.
what I'm hearing is I want all the money that we decided collectively to help our taxpayers save money, put back in because I didn't get a rec center. I think that's totally appalling. And I
do
can call it
too,
out
but-
because I'm hearing that. And I think anybody listening to this would say the same thing.
Yeah, it's
What you're doing is taking money. We had a plan designed for the taxpayers to not raise their taxes, and you're taking it away because you don't get a rec center, which makes no difference because we're trying to get somewhat of something done with the rec center. Wow.
I'm personally
I'm-
doing something with 151,000 as in putting it back in.
Beside myself on that
So we
one.
have to do something with the rec center.
If we're not gonna move forward with the rec center, we need to move forward with the rest of the projects that we planned on doing, so. the
But I didn't know
1.6
there
is
was
part of it.
a clause in there that says we're doing this, and if we don't get the rec center, then we want to go back and take
There
everything and put it back in. Right, exactly. It was for the taxpayers. It wasn't for
But we're
a
gonna
rec
keep
center
moving
vote.
on then, so let's keep moving on. We'll what we thought we were gonna cut, we're gonna keep moving on. In the plan that we proposed in the
Budget?
but no, in the thing that we threw out here, everything in with what Mark had wanted and what we were proposing with the rec center, with using lost funds, with everything, our taxpayers were getting a cut. And now they're not.
We're not talking about that. I'm talking about
Yeah, we are. This
putting
is
it
all-
back
this
in
was-
because I
this was-
wasn't getting a rec center. That,
This
I
is
guess
The way we had it would have been our taxpayers having a cut. It wouldn't have been an increase.
But with
Now
the-
you're
but-
willing to give them
The
the
original
increase.
But
budget
with the
was-
that they did with the rec
caveat that
center.
we'll support the rec center.
We need to keep moving forward. If we don't do one project, we're going to do the other. That is the way this works. This city doesn't die. This is not a personal checkbook. We don't have the same type of budget that you do with your home checkbook. We continue to run this city because long after you and I are gone, it's still here, hopefully. That is why we have worked so hard to set it up the way that we have. Everybody, not this is nothing for me. This came from the way back to the Farners and the others long before us. I didn't learn all this in my first 2 months of being in here. It took me quite a while to understand how this all works. So I'm a little bit taken back by the fact that I haven't been asked any questions from you new folks about how this works if you had questions, because I think you did have questions. We just answered some. It would have been nice to maybe have some more conversation on why it didn't make sense to you. So we do these things because this city isn't going to die, I hope. But if we don't move forward, it will. I don't want to be a part of that.
Did you reach out?
Did you? It goes
I mean,
both
you
ways.
really want this rec center
Let's
to
move
work.
on.
That's what I'm asking. If you want it to work, I had every opportunity to reach out.
Let's move
No.
on, whatever is next. It goes both ways. Michael, what do we need to do going forward? Or Mark, what do we need to do?
We have to set a max levy public hearing.
Okay.
And in order for that to happen, we have to have a max levy to propose.
Right.
And right now, there's a difference. And it's 3-3. And so I'm out of,
Did we vote on this?
well, it's been pretty
Are you
apparent.
assuming of the three
Not
people
at
that
all.
brought
No,
in
I'm
here?
listening. I'm listening.
So we can actually set,
I've got 2
we
ears.
can actually set the higher tax levy right now.
You could.
Then that part of that debate can be down the road, but we can actually do that right now.
Okay.
So with the max levy resolution, it's
You would go
exactly
back
that.
to the 10.54300.
No,
If you would put back, I'm gonna say put back, probably not the best use of words. The 151,000 that we've talked about, that's been removed,
TIF
reallocated.
doesn't affect that.
The TIF doesn't affect that. The tax rate on the public hearing notice for the max levy would be $10.74225.
it's
We could actually-
10.7225.
74225.
So we could actually set that tonight and debate this other stuff later.
You could, yes, because this sets the maximum amount that it could be lowered later at the time. It would have to be then definitely determined at the next council meeting when the resolution is presented.
So does it go back to the 1054?
It goes, pull up this screen again. So if you look at this, what this screen shows, you have the first column here. This is basically the levies in the current, sorry,
That's all right.
these,
I'm losing it.
so this first column is the current tax, certified property tax.
For this year.
For the
For
current
fiscal
year.
22, what we're operating on right
Correct.
now.
And it excludes the debt service levy. The second column is assuming your tax asking dollars remain the same. So this 5.5508
Oh, yeah.
02. Those two numbers stay the same. Because of the way the rollbacks were, we know assessed values went up a little bit, but the taxable values went down. And because they went down to pull in the same dollar amounts, the tax rate has to increase slightly. So that's all the second column does. Is again, it looks at the current budget year. We're going to keep the dollars the same. What happens to the tax levy? Now, based on what happened at the last meeting in the workshop, the tax askings went slightly down, and then that is the resulting that 10.45545 is the resulting property tax rate. Now, what Laura just said is, again, the 10.74225, I just calculated it backwards using what we went through. If you take off 28 cents, it goes back to what the current max levy resolution shows of 10.45545. So, yeah, so if we add that in, that's what would happen. Now, once you add the debt service in, that's where you go back to that original, what was in the budget of 12.143882. I know the legislature did this in the name of transparency, and it's about the most opaque process in the world.
And thus keeps the tax increase the same as presented, with no changes to the preliminary budget.
Yes, so that yes, that would take it back to what was in the preliminary budget.
So to Laverne's point, we can go ahead and set the date, but we are going to have the discussion again 2 weeks from now.
Well, you have to set the rate. You have to set a rate tonight.
The max. The max. Yep.
Yes.
And we can always go down.
We can go down.
But that's what I want to make sure the council's aware of. It can go down, but
it
tonight,
cannot go up.
right. And tonight we're setting it as if there was no change from the preliminary budget.
So it's 10.74225, Laura, right?
That is if you put the 151,000 back in.
Okay.
Say that again, Laverne. 10 point what?
Well, it's on this thing right here. 10.74225.
So Laura, I'm assuming we would propose in the dollars would go into either police and fire retirement and FICA IPERS.
Yeah, I would put it in probably a couple different of those categories.
Could it be in the employee benefit?
In the employee benefits portion, yes.
And then our total tax levy would go to $5,655,712. Is that correct? If I'm doing my math on the fly, it's $5,655,712.
Yeah, 5,655,712.
Could you speak a little? I can't hear either.
Sorry.
Of you.
So in this total tax levy, the third column, it would go to $5,655,712.
Okay, thank you.
And then it would be this annual change, if I'm doing my math correct, would be a positive 1.88%. Does that sound correct, Laura? Actually, that would be in the budget real quick.
Yeah, that'll be in the budget. 1.89% or 1.88, depending on how it rounds.
Okay. Yeah, it would round to 1.89%. So really areas that would change, well, this isn't gonna. is really, these numbers are going to would have to change to reflect it.
Yes.
We still have a few items of business to do, so let's draw this to a close. What is the council's wishes? And
You want a motion?
yeah, to set a public hearing date requires a motion, so.
So I'll make a motion to set the tax rate at 10.74225.
I'll second.
And for the public hearing date to be February 28th.
That'd be fine.
Got it.
That is a motion. There was a second.
I will.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Coordinaro,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Shrek,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
yes. Motion is approved.
Heavy-duty truck purchase. How about some levity?
Okay, at least we're doing something interesting. We're buying trucks.
Yep. I'm all for buying new cars and trucks, so
Sure.
go ahead, Randy.
We have received a price quotation for the purchase of a heavy-duty truck for the street division. It was received from O'Halloran International. This proposed purchase is for the replacement of a 2005 heavy-duty truck. Their net quote was $168,647.25. That's actually, this will be a 2023 build for this truck. And International, the truck manufacturer, has indicated they do not anticipate a surcharge in this intervening time on the chassis. But the body and plow equipment manufacturer, supplier actually, has advised that there may be additional surcharges on that plow and body equipment. This price was quoted through Sourcewell, which is a service cooperative that is authorized to provide cooperative purchasing services to all its members. The city did join the National Joint Powers Alliance, which is the former name of Sourcewell, in 2015. So the city's a member. The cooperative purchasing is not included in the city's purchasing policy, so a waiver would be required to make that purchase. The current budget does include $200,000 for the purchase of a truck. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend waiver of the purchasing policy and approval of the purchase of the truck and plow equipment from O'Halloran International at their quoted price, plus any additional surcharges that may apply at that time.
Randy, I only have one question on that. Is there a way to prepay or buy the additional stuff now, such as the plow and the box that you're going to put on the truck?
There is. The equipment supplier has offered to order the equipment, the box and plows, immediately upon approval. And as soon as they come in, invoice the city for them. And then whenever the chassis comes in, they'll start building. But it is some delay time still. They anticipated that equipment couldn't get to their yard from their manufacturer until maybe the end of the year. So it decreases the risk of any surcharges, but they wouldn't eliminate it completely, you know. And so if you're inclined, certainly we would break the purchase order and pay as soon as practical, as soon as the stuff is delivered, in order to reduce those possible surcharges, if that's acceptable.
Any other questions for Randy? Hearing none, we're in order for a motion to waive the purchasing policy and to make the purchase of the truck for a net price of $168,647.25.
Plus, if there happen to be any surcharges,
Right.
we'll make every effort to reduce those surcharges or eliminate
Yeah.
those surcharges.
So we should probably have the motion include and possible surcharges, so that's in the minutes.
Yep, we'll do.
I'll make a motion.
There's a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ordinary,
Yes.
Shrek. Yes. Bauer,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Bays. Yes. Seaman.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Next item is a report of bid opening for the ash tree removal project. Those bids are in your packet. And Chad,
Yeah, so we had our bid opening on February 2nd. This is a continuation of our ash tree removal project. Had quite a few bidders, up to 6 bidders on the project. Yeah, everything's listed below. So our recommendations, the city council to consider and approve the bid from Western Iowa Tree Service for the removal of a total of 50 trees in the golf course and parks at a cost of $24,750, and a bid from Eddie's Limbs for the removal of 17 trees in the cemetery at a cost of $18,400.
very good. So you'd be using 2 vendors that way.
Correct.
Yep.
Where's Western Iowa Tree Service out of?
Auburn.
Okay.
Do you have any experience with them?
No.
Okay.
They're a newer company, it sounds like.
Both of them. I'm sorry, both of them.
Oh, Eddie's Limbs, yes, we have.
Eddie's you
use-
have, but not Western Iowa.
Correct.
Okay. Eddie's has been satisfactory, I suppose. Okay. Any other questions for Chad? Hearing none, are we in order for a motion to approve the tree trimming bids, one each, one to Western Iowa Tree Service for removal of 50 trees for a cost of $24,750, and a second bid from Eddie's Limbs for the removal of 17 trees at the cemetery at a cost of $18,400. Is there a motion for that effect?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Dirks.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Shrek.
Yes.
Bays. Yes. Bauer.
Yes.
Ordinary.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Item E, under reports, is a report of bid opening on a 60-inch front mower, cabin blower for the cemetery. Once again,
Yeah, so this was another bid opening, February 3rd. We received 3 bids for this mower. This would be for the cemetery department to replace one of their lower end mowers. This would also include a cab, AC, heat, as well as a snow blower to help maintain the paths at the cemetery. Low price for the mower came in at $42,410.76 with a trade-in value of $17,500 for a total of $24,910.76. We did have $42,000 estimated or budgeted for this replacement, so it came well in below overall estimation.
very good. Any questions on the mower for Chad? Hearing none, we're in order for a motion to approve this purchase. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, you got to put the
Yeah.
dollar figure in.
Yeah,
The dollar.
yeah. So it would be from Van Wall Equipment for 60-inch mower in amount of $24,910.76.
$24,910.76.
76.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Bays. Yes. Dirks.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Shrek.
Yes.
Ordinary.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
And finally, we have Espresso Fitness Bikes. Chad.
Exciting stuff. So this is replacing 2 of our oldest Espresso Fitness bikes. They're over 7 years old. They're beyond repair. We would just like to replace them with newer models. This is the brand we're happy with. We did go through Sourcewell or take a look through Sourcewell pricing. There were no discounts or extra warranties present through that program. So what we're asking for is City Council consideration approval of waiving purchasing policy, number 0501 to purchase 2 Espresso Upright Series bikes for the total purchase price of $12,632.48.
Any questions on the bikes from Chad?
No, I'm just going to make one quick comment. As many pieces of equipment that are in there, we're going to be looking at like 2 to 3 things every year, I would think. Because there's a lot of stuff in that room.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Do they ever do trade-in? I know the one time there was.
Yeah,
Talk
so we've
about-
done some trade-ins with these. They were, I think they said a 60-40 contingency sale. So we're going to try and use gut deals and unload them that way.
Question? Any others? Hearing none, we're in order for a motion for the council to approve, or to waive the purchasing policy first, and to purchase 2 Espresso Upright Series bikes for the total purchase price, $12,632.48. The motion,
Make a motion.
Kyle,
I'll second.
and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Bordenero,
Yes.
Shrek,
Yes.
Base. Yes. Bauer.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Committee reports, none. Comments from the mayor, none. Comments from the city council? Comments from the city manager?
I have no report this evening, Mayor.
Then we are in order for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none.
Bauer,
Yes.
Bordenero,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Base. Yes. Shrek.
Yes.
We're adjourned.